How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Some idea.
I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that?
People dislike me because I am not completely like them. I am trying to do with my life something which few people try to do, and this influences my thinking and consequently my action.
What is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final scene of
Marky got with Sharon, Sharon got Sharia. She was sharing Sharon's outlook on the topic of disease. Mikey had a facial scar and Bobby was a racist. They were all in love with dying, they were doing it in Texas. Tommy played piano like a kid out in the rain, and then he lost his leg in Dallas. He was dancing with the train. They were all in love with dying, they were drinking from a fountain that was pouring like an avalanche coming down the mountain.
I don't mind the sun sometimes, the images it shows. I can taste you on my lips and smell you in my clothes.
What up, guys? I apologize for being 40 minutes late. I apologize. I was working on something all day, and it legitimately just took me longer, significantly longer, than I thought it was going to take me because, as I'm prone to do, I had an original vision for something, and I was like, I already have all the material for this. It's going to be so easy. And then I made it more complicated. But it turned out significantly better, but it just took longer. No, Chris. Oh, today sucked. I lost my grandma that I've been taking care of this morning. I'm so sorry, Chris. I'm so sorry you lost your grandma, but you know what? Your grandma's always going to be there. Your grandma's always going to love you. You can always talk to your grandma to say whatever you want. She'll hear it. But I'm really sorry. And our condolences to you. And, heart goes out. Everyone send love and appreciation to Chris for being here today. Well, I am 40 minutes late because I was working on something all day, and I'm going to show you guys what I was working on because it's really, really cool. Yeah, exactly. Time isn't real. So am I ever actually late? No, the answer is no. The answer is no. Well, we do have a little bit of a mishmash show coming up today. I want to start, and this is just a real quick thing. We're not even going to talk that much about this. But guess what? The Jewish students at Columbia are still protesting. And do you know what I find really kind of interesting about this is, so do you guys remember back in 2020 with the BLM protests where the left would always say that the white people have to be in the front at the BLM protests because white people have white privilege and they are and they have all the power and therefore they should be in the front and put themselves in the most dangerous position while all the black people are in the back at the BLM protest? Does everyone remember this? The reason they did that is it's part of progressive stack, or what I sometimes have called the woke oppression hierarchy. They call it progressive stack, though, and it's basically their ranking system in order of who has the most intersectionality oppression points, or who is the most oppressed by capitalism, and who has the least intersectionality points, or the least oppressed by capitalism. And what they want to do is they say, okay, all you people that aren't really oppressed by capitalism, what you need to do is make up for the fact that you're not as oppressed by capitalism by oppressing yourselves and putting yourself in danger so that you can protect all of us. And so the rule was in the 2020 protests that the white people had to be in front and the black people had to be in back. Does everyone remember this? I'm not making this up. This was actually a thing. Well, let's fast forward to 2025. And what do we know about the left in regards to Israel? We know that the left is supporting Palestine in this, not because they really care about Palestinians at all, and not because they really care about Muslims at all, although there are activists on the left that have been Free Palestine activists for a long time. I'm not talking about those people. Those people do legitimately care. Most of those people come from Palestine, have family in Palestine, have some sort of connection to the region. So those are actually real people that really do care. But most of the people who are protesting on the left today, as we know because we watch them all the time, are radical revolutionary socialists. They're socialists. They want a revolution in this country. And so what they do is they latch onto issues and they co-opt them to use them to recruit and radicalize more people to the far left. Okay? So when I'm talking about the college protesters in this case, what I'm talking about are the radical revolutionary socialists that are co-opting this issue in order to try to radicalize more people to the far left. So what do the protesters believe about Israel and Palestine? They believe that the Israelis are the evil settler colonists. Settler colonists means they privatized the land, they colonized or colonialized the land and privatized it under the oppressive force of capitalism. That means they stole the land from the indigenous people and then said, we control this and you can only be on it if we say so. And so that's why they don't like the Israelis. It has nothing to do with them being Jewish. It's because the Israelis are the settler colonists and the Palestinians are the oppressed, colonized people that had their land stolen from them. And the Palestinians are in a decolonization effort to try to overthrow their capitalist oppressors. That is why the protesters on the left support the Palestinians over Israel. It has nothing to do with Muslim anything. It has nothing to do with Islam anything. It has nothing to do with Palestinians. Some of them are legitimate anti-war activists. Okay, fine. But mostly they dislike Israel because Israel are the settler colonists, not because they're Jewish. It doesn't really matter that they're Jewish. They dislike them because they're the settler colonists, okay? So the left sees what's going on in the Middle East as a very literal oppressor versus oppressed narrative. And they are always going to be on the side of the oppressed. So now, let's combine the two. Going back to 2020, we know that white people had to stand in front of black people during the BLM protests, okay? Let's apply that to what we're seeing now. The people protesting the strongest in opposition to the deportation of Mahmoud Khalil, who is the Columbia student who the Trump administration is trying to deport, basically because he was speaking up at the pro-Palestine protests. Not that he did anything wrong, he didn't commit any crime, just because he said things the Trump administration doesn't like. The people protesting the loudest to try to overcome the deportation order are who? The Jewish students, the Jewish organizations. And we're seeing that again right now. Today at Columbia, Jewish students are chained to Columbia University gates demanding the name of the trustees that reported Mahmoud Khalil to ICE. Dozens of NYPD officers are here. Jewish students, you say? And Breakthrough News was covering this as well. And we've seen this group protesting several times. This is Jewish Voices for Peace. This one guy's wearing a yarmulke. He is literally wearing a yarmulke at the protests. Breaking, Columbia students changed themselves to the gates for Mahmoud Khalil. Members of Jewish Voice for Peace are demanding the university disclose the names of the trustees who shared Khalil's information with ICE. There have been protests about the students who Trump is trying to deport all over the country. There's also a protest today in Boston, which is where Tufts University is. There's also a Tufts student that Trump is trying to deport. We're seeing these things pop up all over the place. But my point is this. The people leading the resistance are the Jewish people. So why are they leading the resistance? Because on the left, They believe the Jewish people are the oppressors. They're the settler colonists, and they are trying to oppress the Palestinian protesters because they are saying words that the administration doesn't like. Maybe not trying to oppress. Maybe I phrased that wrong. Let me try phrasing that again. The Jewish students are protesting because they're representative of the oppressor in the situation, and here it is. I got it. And they are using their power to be in opposition to the oppression of the oppressed groups that they're protesting for. That's a much better way to describe it. Does everyone understand that? It's like when white people were using their power to protect black people, now Jewish people are using their power to protect Palestinians. It is exactly the same framework. The left operates in exactly the same way at all times. And if you understand the language of the left, this is why we spend so much time decoding the language and really getting very, very pedantic about the definitions, because the definitions are everything. The definitions are all that matters. And it doesn't matter what you specifically, person listening on the internet, it doesn't matter what your definition is. It matters what their definition is. The left's definitions are all that matters when it comes to understanding the left, because the left's behaviors are going to follow what the left believes. And in this case, the left is not anti-Semitic, no matter how many times conservative influencers say it. There are literally Jewish students protesting what's going on in Palestine, and the reason they're doing it is because they perceive Israel to be the evil settler colonists who are trying to oppress the Palestinians, and so the Jewish students have Jewish privilege in this case, and they are using their Jewish privilege to stick up for the people who are being oppressed by the settler colonists. Everyone, if you don't understand that, please ask a question in the chat. I just wanted to talk about this to demonstrate that it is literally exactly the same thing that happened at the BLM protests in 2020, because the left is completely consistent. Completely consistent. I see someone saying they're wackadoo in the chat. No. If someone behaves logically at every single point, they are not wackadoo. That is a retarded take. They are not wackadoo if they behave consistently every single time. What is wackadoo is when people on the right refuse to understand why the left is doing what they're doing, because the people on the right then completely miss the point and go, they're just anti-Semites, they're Jew haters, they're anti-Semites, they're Jew haters. They're not anti-Semites, they're not Jew haters, that's not what they're doing. And you can see this right now, unless you think this is just a bunch of like self-hating Jews that are protesting at Columbia. Makes no sense. Anyway, we'll be following this along. Of course, I'm constantly monitoring the college protests and the campus protests, and I'll let you guys know if anything new and different happens. It's just like if we covered every single thing that happened at these protests, we'd literally be talking about it every single day, because there's always things happening at these protests. Naruto in with the super chat. I saw a rabbi said in front of Congress last week in a hearing on anti-Semitism, it's not enough to say you're not anti-Semitic. You must be anti-Semitic. I DM'd you the link. Yeah, I saw that clip. I saw that clip all over the place. And again, this is another great example. That rabbi testifying in front of Congress saying it's not enough to be anti-Semitic. You have to be anti-Semitic is exactly the same thing as Ibram X. Kendi in 2020 saying it's not enough to not be racist. You have to be actively anti-racist. It uses, I don't know how you can get closer to using exactly the same language structure of the left and still have people on the right not get it. I have no idea. So that's what's going on with the campus protests, but we do have some other stuff to cover today. And we are going to be talking a little bit more about what's going on in Columbia. We are going to watch this clip from Democracy Now! That came out a couple hours ago. Apparently, there's a professor at Columbia saying that the leadership at Columbia capitulating to the Trump administration constitutes a coup. Democracy Now! Is a little bit more of a progressive publication. It's a little bit more mid-range leftist, and we don't normally watch that sort of thing, to be honest, but I do kind of want to start dipping my toe in the more progressive Democratic Socialists of America stuff, because of course the progressives and the Democratic Socialists of America provide a pipeline to the far left, so we actually do need to know what they're talking about. So I want to start working in some more of those clips into what we're doing. I know it's not as crazy as the far left stuff, but sometimes you just got to know what's going on, and quite frankly, the progressives say some really cringe things. Most of the cringe clips that are shared come from progressives. They don't actually come from far leftists. And so, you know, it might be entertaining for us. But we are going to be watching this clip from Democracy Now! Where apparently a professor at Columbia is going to be talking about a coup that's happening. I also have this clip. We're going to be watching a good mishmash of stuff today. This is, I think, is another progressive thing. This is a clip Amanpour and Company, who this woman I think used to be like, she's like a like liberal like journalist or whatever, but she's got a guy on, and this is a clip about how fascism works. Like, I want to hear this clip just because of the title. I want to hear a leftist, and I don't know if this guy's a progressive or a DSA type or a far leftist. I want to hear a leftist describe how fascism works. I just feel like there might be some good clips in there. And if we have extra time, there's even some stuff from the Revolutionary Communists of America that I would like to watch. But we're going to start with this clip that literally just came online like a couple hours ago. This is from Pluto Press. Pluto Press is one of the socialist book publishers that we follow. Pluto Press has published many of the authors that we've watched on this channel, so we keep an eye on them. And Pluto Press apparently has created a board game called Billionaires and Guillotines. Did leftists really create a board game that is about violently overthrowing our society and murdering their adversaries? Did this really happen? Is it Christmas? Is it my birthday? Well, you know what? We're going to find out. We're going to find out, and we're going to watch that clip. And I think that we're all really going to enjoy it. But before we get into that, couple quick things. Oh, last thing before we get started. We're not going to do a full-on James update. But can we just talk about how sad this situation is? Do you guys know that James Lindsay and my haters are basically the only people left that support James Lindsay? Like, if you really hate me, you are best friends with James Lindsay, no matter what he says, no matter what he does, and you can look at his timeline and see this, and it's actually just kind of sad. You're gonna see all the greatest hits. And this is just, I was just scrolling through this like a couple minutes ago. So scrolling down James's timeline. Oh, Frank McCormick. Frank McCormick is a psychopath that literally photoshops pictures of me all the time. If we go to Frank McCormick's Twitter feed, this is from, check this out. This guy is such a psycho. I had this guy on my channel back in 2020 or 2021 or something, and then he thought, oh, look, right there. Literally, I didn't even see this. Literally 4 minutes ago. Frank McCormick spends all of his time like photoshopping images that he says are like me. I didn't even know this was up. You've been visited by Carolyn Barasenko, Cluster B Ogre. Her only desire is to crush James Lindsay during intercourse. In Japan, parents warn their kids not to follow James Lindsay out of fear. What the fuck? That's not even all, though. That was 4 minutes ago he tweeted this. But, like, if we scroll down his timeline. Oh, this he made last night. This is literally what Frank McCormick... This guy used to be a teacher. And I really hope this guy isn't a teacher anymore because he's fucked up in the head. He even admitted on Twitter that he'd gone off his psychiatric meds. These are the types of people you encounter when you do anti-woke activism, guys, and this is why I don't talk to any of those people, because they are all like this. Doesn't he have anything better to do? No. No, he doesn't. No. But look, there's James. There's James. Look, he's tweeting about James. Like, James and his friends are pretending that they are the oppressed now. James and his friends are like, everyone is so mean to us. I just don't understand why. I don't understand why everyone hates us so much, okay? So Frank, because he hates me, is tweeting about his love for James Lindsay. Why does Frank do that? So he's insane. That's like all I can really say. Like, when this started is I followed Frank for years just because I was trying to be nice. And then one day I quietly unfollowed him. I didn't announce that I was unfollowing him. I didn't go after him on Twitter. No, nothing. And a couple weeks after I unfollowed him, Frank figured out that I unfollowed him, and he has been a lunatic ever since. It was just like rage posting about me constantly, like obsessively replying to everyone. It was just like insane. And this has been going on for months and months and months, all because I unfollowed him on Twitter because he wasn't posting anything interesting and I found him annoying. But he's James Lindsay's best friend. And oh, we've got Carrie there too. And is this like the most sad, pathetic thing you've ever seen? James has started posting stuff like this about him. Can you imagine if I posted on the internet, Karlin Borisenko is a good egg, on a picture of an egg? Can you imagine? And it's like he was posting this all day yesterday. It's okay to support James Lindsay. It's like, this is sad. This is sad. And this is pathetic. And it's sad. And it's pathetic. And I just feel really sad for him now because this is all he has. All he has left are my haters in terms of the good Christian Carrie Smith who stalked me for years and Frank McCormick who spends all his time photoshopping stuff about me. It's just sad. It's, yeah. To the point where, like, to the point that, like, I even feel bad about even, like, doing James updates anymore because I feel like I'm making fun of the mentally ill. And even though he brought it on himself and he deserves it and I don't feel bad for him, it just feels a little skeezy. But I had to do a James update just because I was like, this is classic. And while James and his friends have been whining on Twitter about how oppressed they are and photoshopping pictures of me, do you guys know what I've been working on? Well, you can head over to my Substack. That is Karlin, KARLYN.substack.com. And you can find out what I've been working on because, as you guys know, on occasion, I do like to create things like frameworks and graphs and charts that help people understand what is going on the left. And I'm really excited to launch my first framework for Decode the Left. You can find Decode the Left at decodetheleft.com. You can actually find the specific landing page for this at decodetheleft.com/map because it is ragingly obvious to me, and I know it's ragingly obvious to many of you as well, that there are a ton of people who do not know the difference between Democrats and liberals and progressives and Democratic Socialists of America and revolutionary socialists. And they lump all of these groups into one bucket of communist. And that's not accurate. And the difference actually does matter because each of these groups uses different strategies, uses different tactics, cares about different things, approaches activism in a different way, and each one of these groups needs a specific counter response that is appropriate for what they are actually doing and what they actually believe. If you use the same tactics to fight Democrats as you use for progressives, it's not going to work. Can you imagine going into a debate with someone and the person you're going into debate with is a hardcore radical revolutionary socialist? And you go in prepping for a good faith intellectual discussion like maybe you would have with a Democrat or a liberal. That's going to go horribly, horribly, horribly wrong because the hardcore radical revolutionary socialist does not believe the same things as the Democrats and the liberals and the progressives. They have a completely different worldview. The hardcore revolutionary socialists don't even like the Democrats. We talk about this literally all the time. They don't like the Democrats. They don't like the liberals. They don't like the progressives. They denounce them all the time. And every single time that people on the right say, Democrats are communists, Democrats are communists, Democrats are communists, Democrats are communists, Kamala Harris is a communist, Biden is a communist, everyone's a communist, Democrats are communists. Every single time that people on the right do this, what they do is they actually run cover for the real communists and the real socialists who are in our society, who are in our institutions, who are in our universities, who are in our public schools, who are literally everywhere. You are running cover for the real far left when you say Democrats are communists, liberals are communists, they're all communists, everyone's a communist, because it's just not true. And what you're doing is you're getting people to look over here at this enemy you think is the Democrats. The real communists are over here fucking up all of society, okay? So while the Democrats are dicking around with pride flags and basic low-level DEI programs, the radical revolutionary communists are trying to abolish gender and the nuclear family. They are not the same group. And if you are looking at this group and saying, they're the real enemy, those DEI programs, that's really the biggest problem, then you're allowing this enemy to continue to try to abolish gender and queer your kids and tell everyone they're non-binary and do all the drag queen stuff. You're allowing this enemy to operate completely unopposed because all your focus is over here because you don't know the difference between the groups. And so I created a helpful tool and a helpful framework to help people understand the difference between the groups. And so you can find this over on the Substack. We got all sorts of infographics. Yeah, I did infographics, okay? I did consulting for a long time. I know how to do this stuff. I know how to create frameworks. Don't let the snark on the internet fool you. I do actually have game. And so we created this framework that explains the difference between Democrat, liberal, progressive, democratic socialist, revolutionary socialist. I've given you group profiles for all the different groups. Here's what Democrats do. Here's their strategy. Here's their goal. Here's how they show up in the world. Here's examples of them. Here's example groups. We've got the good, morally superior liberals. We've got the eat the rich progressives. We've got our Trojan horse DSA, and then we have the real live radical revolutionary socialists. And I also mapped queer theory and queer ideology onto this because, as you guys know, queer theory is not about being gay. It's not about being trans. It's not about being any of those things. It is all about a far left radical revolutionary political ideology. And so what I wanted to do is show, listen, the Democrats dicking around with these pride flags, they are not the same as the queer Marxists who are trying to abolish gender. There again is a progression to this. And Democrats are doing this stuff and liberals are doing this stuff more as a performative exercise. They don't actually even really believe in it. But when you get to the more hardcore levels and the lower tiers on the framework, you get much more queer ideology, much more extreme ideology. And guess what? Those are the people teaching your kids. Okay? So we have to understand all of these things. And so I put together this framework to help people understand so that never, ever, ever, ever again will we have to suffer someone coming in here and saying, Democrats are communists, Democrats are communists, Democrats are communists, Kamala Harris is a communist, they're all communists, where Biden is a communist, Democrat, I can't do it. I can't do it. People need to understand this. People need to start taking this seriously. This is not something that you just want to like throw out terms without having them actually mean anything. All of these groups are different. All of these groups have different beliefs. They have different strategies. They have different goals, and you can see it very clearly in the way it's laid out in the framework. So I've been sending this out to people. I really do hope people look at this. I hope people take it seriously, and it's something that we can refer back to. And what I want to do too is make a catalog of groups on the left and actually assign them a tier. So we want to make sure, hey, guess what? The like moveon.org, that's going to be more of a liberal group. Whereas if you have something like the Democratic Socialists of America, obviously are in tier 4. You have something like the Tempest Collective, Pinko Magazine, places like that, Haymarket Books, that's going to be in tier 5. I want people to be able to see the difference between these groups. And if you want to spend all your time fighting with the Democrats and liberals, that's fine. I don't really care. I just want to be honest about the fact that you are fighting with the low-level lefties that, quite frankly, are not the ones that are actually dictating culture, when the root of the problem is going to be more down towards the revolutionary socialists. Everything is trickled down from the revolutionary socialists. Maybe I shouldn't have put them on the bottom of the chart. Maybe I should have put them on the top. because all the democratic strategies that drive people crazy are trickled down from the real far left. And so if you're only fighting the Democrats and you're only fighting the liberals, you're not actually getting at the root of the problem, because the root of the problem is much, much, much deeper. And that's the thing that needs to be taken and banished from all of society. But that's not going to happen if people don't understand the difference between the groups. So you can find that right now over on decodetheleft.com. You can find it on decodetheleft.com/map. If you go to just decodetheleft.com, which is a new website that I just launched the other day to make a hub for all of this stuff and a strategic intelligence platform where we are not only putting together all the good information that we are crowdsourcing and finding for the community, we are also going to be pushing this out to try to get more right-leaning anti-communist type groups to pay attention to this stuff, to provide a resource for them to understand the left, provide a resource for media and commentators and pundits to understand the left, because I want them correctly informing their audiences. I want people to learn this stuff. It is not until people start learning this stuff that we are actually able to fight back in a strategic way. And I want to be able to push these resources out to individuals in the media, to organizations that would find it helpful in terms of framing this for their audiences and helping them achieve whatever goals they have, because there's a lot of organizations that are just not working off of good intelligence when it comes to the leftist groups they claim to be opposing. And they're implementing strategies for this group over here when really they should be fighting this group over here. So if you go to decodetheleft.com, go over the resources section, you can find Mapping the Modern Left there, and it is decodetheleft.com/map. And if you guys want to, I did post this on the Decode the Left Twitter account. That is x.com, twitter.com/decodetheleft, and it is pinned to the very top of the page. And I would love it if you guys could share this tweet. If you're on Twitter, make sure you have followed the Decode the Left account if you are on Twitter. And this is kind of like the place where you can always go, where you're not going to see me complaining about things on this account. This is just for pure leftist decoding content. So if you're like, Carlin, all you do is complain on Twitter, well, yeah, sometimes that's true. But guess what? I've created a resource for you where you can just get the leftist content and you don't have to listen to me complaining, and it is twitter.com/decodetheleft, okay? But if you want to hear me complaining, follow me on my main account too. I'm Dr. Carlin B on Twitter. And so you can follow me there, but just know that this is the place where you can go where there won't be any drama or nonsense or any of that. So I would appreciate it if you guys could share that out, and that would be really great. And if you feel like supporting the work I'm doing, the very best place to do it is over on my Substack. That is Carlin, KARLYN.substack.com. Please sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. I am 100% grassroots funded by you guys. No one else is creating this type of content. And the reason that I'm able to do this and spend so much time thinking it through, creating the content, writing the content, all this stuff, is because you guys allow me to. I don't have any political masters. I have the general public, people of all political spectrums, people of all ages, people who believe that the far left is a problem and they want to understand it and they want to do something about it. You guys fund my ability to do this, so I cannot do it without you. If you haven't yet signed up on the Substack, that is the very best place you can support me today, and I would really appreciate it. Also, last thing I'm going to plug before we get started is that if you missed it yesterday, over on the Red Menace Collective, which is redmenacecollective.substack.com. This is a different Substack than carlin.substack.com. Red Menace Collective is where I post draft chapters of books that I'm working on before I actually publish them as books. And so members of the Red Menace Collective, which is a separate membership, get access to these draft chapters before anyone else in the world. So you get the really kind of cool content that I'm playing around with. You get content that no one else has seen so far. And what I posted yesterday on the Red Menace Collective is a short story that I will be publishing as a little teeny tiny little book at some point, maybe even with illustrations. I posted a short story called Alice in Queerland. And it is exactly like what it sounds like. It is a take on Alice in Wonderland combined with a massive amount of queer ideology, and I'm really proud of how it turned out, and I think it's really good. And I know that Judy has already finished it. I don't know if anyone else has finished it in the chat, but let us know if you have a review. It is very short. This is not a book. This is like maybe 10,000 words. This is very, very, very short. Okay, so you can actually just read this in one sitting if you want to. And I got a comment today. I think it was from Janet. Shout out Janet. And if it's not from Janet, I still shout out Janet because Janet's great. I got a comment today saying, well, Carlin, maybe you need to make this a little simpler because, like, beginners aren't going to understand this. And, okay, I understand the inclination. I do. I understand the inclination. Maybe this is not your best introduction to queer Marxism. It's not. I'm working on that. I'm working on a book literally called Queer Marxism. It's coming, okay? But I got to tell you guys, when I'm doing these more creative projects, this is a creative outlet for me. If you think that I'm not working out some feelings about being immersed in a far left counterculture for literally years now, this is a creative outlet, okay? And so the purpose of Alice in Queerland is not to provide an introduction to queer theory. It's not to speak to beginners. The purpose of Alice in Queerland is to create an absurd satire of queer ideology that will piss off queer activists. And I promise you, queer activists will absolutely understand every single thing in the book. People who watch Queer Marxism with me will understand every single thing in the book, and they will find it hilarious. So yes, there is like an entry level, I guess, of knowledge to be able to really appreciate the satire that I've created. But I'm not framing it for beginners. I need a creative outlet, Janet, okay? I need a creative outlet. I know you understand. I need a creative outlet, all right? You know what? Actually, this is a good point. So when I do publish it, I am working on like an introduction. So this is actually, you know what? Fair point, Janet. Fair point, well made. Maybe we'll do a little primer or something in the book because it's so short. It's so teeny tiny that I can include stuff like that. So, cool. Yeah, Reagan said it's like in a kids movie where they put stuff in for parents and the kids don't understand those parts. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. So if you guys want to read Alice in Queerland, I had a super fun time writing this story. I think it's fun. You can find it over on redmenacecollective.substack.com, and you can sign up there to get access to the full story right now, and also chapters of other books that I'm working on. And of course, all those things do go to support the work I'm doing. Let's see, Vashil in with the super chat. I'm losing my mind because my work is having me flag every post that uses the word diversity, and they had a hashtag using oh no. Oh no. Vashil, you sound like you're in the 7th circle of hell. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you're going through that. Hang in there. I hope you're listening to some good music while you do it. Tolkien fan, I read this twice now and love it. You weren't kidding when you mentioned there were other things in the pipeline. Do I have the green light for info flashcards? You can do whatever you want. Listen, if you want to use the framework that I created to make flashcards, I'm not going to tell you no. But you don't need my permission to do that. If you want to create flashcards out of this, go ahead. Just make them look cool is all I ask. If you're going to represent my work, make them look cool. Like, make sure you link back to the thing if you wouldn't mind. But you guys don't need to, you don't need to ask my permission to use my stuff. I'm creating this stuff so that other people can use it. And if you find it useful and you want to take it and make something creative out of it, then do it. Please do it. But what I would ask, though, is that when you do that, make sure to give me credit because it came from me and something that I made. And so you can use it for free. I don't care. You can make things if you want to sell things. I don't care. Just tell people where it came from. And that's all that I really ask. I know people use my work in presentations, and I really appreciate that. People do things based on the work I do, so I really appreciate that. Just give credit, and that's all I ask. And let me know when you have it ready, whatever you're doing, and I'll retweet it and post it and stuff like that. Because what we should be doing is helping each other and creating a creative ecosystem. One of the things I really want to do with my community is create a creative ecosystem. We have a lot of writers in my community. There's a literal writers group in my Discord. We have creative projects going on all the time. We have people making clips. We have people writing stories. We have people doing AI art that looks really effing cool. We should be doing more of that, and we should be helping each other and supporting each other because All we basically need to do to defeat the left is to do a monkey see, monkey do. How did the left organize? How did the left do this? How did the left create these decentralized structures? You might not like them and you might not like their beliefs, that's fine, but their strategy works. And so if it works, monkey see, monkey do, we do the same thing. The left is so effective because they support each other. They don't always agree with each other, but generally speaking, they do end up supporting each other when it comes to organizing and activism and building creative things and not restricting people and not stealing people's stuff and giving credit and things like that. So the left is actually really good about that. We should be really good about that too. It's part of why they're doing so well. So that is my hour-long preamble. And now we're going to get into the actual content of the show. Let's see. Everyone, please make sure to mount the like button for me. If you would be so kind, if you're new here, please make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Hell, even if you're old here, because YouTube literally unsubscribes people in batches from my channel every single night. So everyone, make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you want to be. Make sure notifications are on. I am live Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. We do Socialism Saturday on Saturdays at 6 p.m. And we are starting off the day with a video from Pluto Press. Pluto Press is a radical revolutionary socialist book publisher, and they have literally just today published a board game, Billionaires and Guillotines, and I want to find out what this is about. Let's listen.
Hello and welcome to Radicals in Conversation, the monthly podcast from Pluto Press, one of the world's leading independent radical publishers. I'm your host, Chris Brown. We have a special episode of the podcast for you today. I am joined on the show by Max Haven. Max is a man of many talents. He is the author of a number of books, including Palm Oil, The Grease of Empire, and Revenge Capitalism. He's also the editor of Pluto's Vagabonds series, and most recently, he is the designer of a new board game called Billionaires and Guillotines. The game is being produced by Pluto Press, and the Kickstarter campaign has now launched.
Oh, a Kickstarter.
All the details for that you can find in the episode description. Max and I talk about the genesis of the project, how the actual gameplay works, and why board games like this one can play a really important role in political education. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. This is Max Haven on Radicals in Conversation. So Max, it's lovely to get to talk to you today on the podcast to discuss Billionaires and Guillotines, an incredible new board game which is in prototype at the moment, but which is going to be having a crowdfunder launching very soon on Kickstarter. So yeah, as I say, the prototype is there in the room behind you. But anyway, everything seems to be coming together really nicely.
There's a Joker.
You know, as someone who's been casually aware of the project rumbling along in the background for the last couple of years, I feel like it's been a sort of long road to where we are now. So I'd really just love for you to take us back and talk a little bit about the genesis of this game. How did it come about? You know, what gave you the idea in the first place? And then what prompted you to take that idea and turn it into something real?
Yeah, well, I think like most people, I played a lot of games as a young person. And I think I can credit a lot of the most important things I learned in my life to playing games in a lot of ways. We tend to think games are frivolous, that they're just a waste of time. But actually, you know, both anthropologists and scholars of human development always point out that this is a main way in which not only humans learn, but all mammals learn and perhaps all animals learn. So we're really missing something big if we discount games and their potential to change our minds and our imaginations. I also played a lot of games when I was raising my son, and we had a good time together, but I could also see him learning a lot about the world through games. And then more recently, I was thinking about games because of a research project I was doing on conspiracies and conspiracy theories, and particularly gamified conspiracy theories like the QAnon phenomenon, which many game designers liken to a massive online participatory game. And that led me to start to think about games as a mode of political communication and education. And I started designing games for my students in social and critical theory. And this game emerged particularly from the challenge of trying to translate some of the lessons from a Marxist political economic standpoint into a gamified form. In particular, Rosa Luxemburg's elaboration of Marx's theories of capitalist contradiction and crises, which, to boil it down to a very vulgar summary, is that capitalists can't be trusted to run the world because even though they sometimes collaborate as a class, they're also compelled by the system that enriches them to compete with one another. And their competition will run away with them and lead to catastrophic outcomes for everyone, including the billionaires themselves, or the capitalists themselves in this case. So I started thinking about how would I convey that to players in a game, and slowly the idea dawned on me that you could do that by getting people to play the billionaires and to watch themselves get so consumed by the spirit of competition that they began to act irrationally and in fact break the game from the inside.
I mean, that really gives you insight, doesn't it, into exactly how they view capitalism. And I'm going to say, this is not the first time that I've encountered socialist board games. When I was undercover at the Socialism 2023 conference, they literally, in their bookstore, they had a massive bookstore, had a whole table of board games. And basically what socialists do is they take popular board games like Monopoly, which are inherently about competition, and they reframe the game to make competition be a bad thing. And it's more about being part of the collective and sharing and all this stuff. And so that's actually really interesting. I want to listen to that part again.
A very vulgar summary is that capitalists can't be trusted to run the world because even though they sometimes collaborate as a class, they're also compelled by the system that enriches them to compete with one another. And their competition will run away with them and lead to catastrophic outcomes for everyone, including the billionaires themselves, or the capitalists themselves in this case. So I started thinking about how would I convey that to players in a game, and slowly the idea dawned on me that you could do that by getting people to play the billionaires and to watch themselves get so consumed by the spirit of competition that they began to act irrationally and in fact break the game from the inside.
Great. Okay, so tell us a bit more then about the game's premise. You know, it's called Billionaires and Guillotines, so maybe it's right there in the title, but as a player, you know, what are you aiming to do in the game?
Okay, as a player, you play one of 5 rival billionaires. You could be an aristocrat or a media baron or a property speculator or a tech overlord or a war profiteer. And you are trying to capture assets in the game. And these assets are the sorts of things that billionaires just love, like social media companies, mega yachts, private jets, mercenary armies, celebrity spouses, these sorts of things. And you're trying to grab 5 of these assets before your opponents do, and the first one to grab them wins. But as you compete to use your resources to get those assets, your actions inadvertently trigger social, economic, political, and ecological crises. And as these crises begin to spiral out of control, the chance of a revolution happening increase and increase. And so there is an eventuality that happens about 30 to 40% of the time in the game where all of the billionaires lose because there's a revolution and it's bye-bye billionaires. There's one opportunity in the game for the billionaires to cooperate with one another and invest in things like xenophobia or a culture war, or even pay a wealth tax in order to try and buy off the people or distract them. But for the most part, the game accelerates to an apocalyptic moment, which is both very realistic and a lot of fun in this case. And then
they literally created a board game where the billionaires are violently overthrown and murdered. Wow.
And the game is built in levels. So, you know, a lot of people who might be interested in a game like this are not necessarily huge hobby gamers and want a fairly simple game. So you begin with a kind of simple version, and then it gets more complex as you go on once you get comfortable. So in later levels of the game, you can, for instance, start to bribe the government to pass policies that will favor your billionaires' investments. You can rat out your opponents to the tax authorities. You can get special roles like being a gangster or a celebrity or a space cowboy. in order to give you certain advantages.
This is so in-depth.
And for people who back our Kickstarter campaign, we have a special offer to get the first expansion pack where you get to play a rebel sympathizer, which is a feature many of our playtesters requested. But in that special version of the game, you don't know if you'll be playing a reformist who's trying to clean up the messes of the billionaires, or a revolutionary who's trying to accelerate things to their cataclysmic endpoint.
Oh my God. We literally just talked about this on Socialism Saturday the other day, about how there are basically two groups. There are two types of socialists that you can be. The Democratic Socialists of America are going to be reformers, which means they work within electoral politics. They want to make incremental change. They do want a post-capitalist society, but they believe in working within the system to reform the system. Whereas this person and the book company that is releasing this and all of his friends are radical revolutionary socialists. Radical revolutionary socialists denounce electoral politics. They don't want to work in it. They don't believe the system can be reformed from within. They believe that AOC and Bernie Sanders are literal traitors to capitalism. And so I think it's so funny. They actually worked this into their board game where you might be a reformer, which means you want to work within the electoral system to make incremental change and progress, or you could be a revolutionary that wants to cut off the heads of the billionaires and violently overthrow the system.
Nice. I love that we're talking about the expansion pack already.
Yeah.
That's great.
Great. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask about the gameplay and the mechanics, right? And how they've maybe changed over time in the process of refinement, building towards the prototype that we have now. So, like, when I play board games, I'm always aware that, while I might have particular roles or characters or maybe paths that I like to adopt or take through a given game, depending on the context, that usually those sorts of preferences aside, it still tends to be quite well balanced. There isn't, for instance, just one strategy that's always going to absolutely dominate all the others. There's got to be that balance and, different ways that you can win the game. So could you take us under the hood, as it were?
Hang on. This is a fair question. I don't recognize you. If you're new, welcome. Would normal people get any of this? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. These are the types of games that they're going to give their socialist children because they have whole programs to create socialist children. Yes, they do have children. They do not abort all their babies. That is not true. They absolutely do have children. And they have childcare programs where they have kids play these types of games, so they raise them to be good socialists. Also, the way the far left works is a big part of how the far left gets its funding is not Soros. It's not USAID. That's all bullshit that's spread by conservatives who don't know what they're talking about. One of the big places the left gets their funding is from publishing, is from bookstores. There are radical revolutionary bookstores in every single city in this country. This is a radical revolutionary socialist book publisher. They only publish radical revolutionary socialist books. Every time a socialist publishes a book with one of the big socialist book publishers, they go on a book tour where they go to all the radical revolutionary bookstores. And by the way, when they're going to a radical revolutionary bookstore, they're probably speaking at colleges near there as well. So they have they literally have an entire ecosystem built on publishing. They have when all the conservatives talked about we need to create our own ecosystem, we need to create our own institutions, we need to create our own stores and all this stuff, the left has already done that. The left created the parallel economy. The left has their own parallel economy where they only buy from other leftists, and leftists spend all their money in the socialist ecosystem. It also means, by the way, that they don't interact with media outside of their ecosystem. This is not a small ecosystem. This is a significantly large ecosystem that is probably selling books into the college bookstores that your kids are going to school at. This is where they get their money. So would normal people who are not socialists get any of this? Probably not, and it doesn't matter. Because this will do very well in that ecosystem. This is a game that will be given to raise their children on. I bet this is going to be popular on the left. This is actually, from a leftist perspective, this game actually sounds really effing cool. They're getting to play out their revolution in the form of a board game. So it doesn't need to exist for normal people. It exists for them. I also saw another chat earlier. Carlin, are all your books on the Red Menace site? Do you have a book for preteens? No, I do not. Listen, I just started publishing books like 2 months ago, and I already have released a couple of them, so I think I'm doing pretty good. You can find the books that I have published and I'm working on right now, most of them, on redmenacepress.com. You can find the draft chapters that I've written on the Red Menace Collective Substack, so you can go in there, and I'm going to make the Red Menace Collective Substack easier to use and easier to navigate. That's going to be coming. It's like an incremental change, but you can find a lot of the books and the draft chapters right now. A book for preteens and teens, hey, it's a great idea. Maybe I'll add it to the list. I have a ton of books I want to write. I'm going to be publishing a ton of books this year, and so the very best way you guys can help me publish more books and get the books that you want is by heading over to redmenacecollective.substack.com and signing up for a membership on there, and I do take feedback from that community. But it's a great idea, and maybe we'll do it at some point. We will add it to the list of things that need to be done. All right?
How do you make sure when you're building a game like this that there isn't one character that is, quantifiably better or more powerful?
Hang on. Everyone, I'm just going to call you, I don't know how to say your name, so I'm going to call you Kit because it's the first part of your name. Everyone, welcome Kit. Yes, it is scary and it is crazy, and just know that everyone in the community that watches this content with us has been new at some point, and that you will feel overwhelmed, but this is the truth. And we will show you video receipts for everything. You will never have to take my word for it. I will always show you the primary source evidence. I only work off of primary source evidence. So welcome. If you feel overwhelmed, ask questions. We love questions from people who are learning, and we will help you understand. And we appreciate you spending some time with us. Janet, we need our own game to defeat the radical left. Yeah, let me add that to the list, Janet, okay? That's actually not the worst idea in the world, but like we're going to make the counter revolutionary gang or something. I don't know. Let's think about that another time. Hey, maybe we can use AI to help us design a game. I fucking love AI. AI is the best thing that has ever happened, ever. You guys have no idea. You have no idea how much content I'm going to be creating with the help of AI. I've got my AI game locked in now. I have all my content fed into AI. My AI knows exactly what I believe. It's actually gotten really scary good at analysis, and I'm like, this is just it's so great. That the framework, the mapping the modern left framework, AI helped with that. And it was I had to futz with it a little bit, but it was like so close. I was like, this is you. It's like AI is plugged into my brain. I've loaded every bit of content I've ever written into AI, and I now am loading I'm actually loading the video transcripts from my live streams into the AI, so the AI knows how I think, and the AI is basically plugged into my brain and takes all the information in my brain, and it makes it into an actionable framework that normal people can understand. Because, I can't speak to normal people anymore because I bet my head is too far in this stuff. But AI is helping me speak to normal people again. AI will, basically, I will become the AI. That's what's going to happen. Yep. Anyway.
Really difficult. I think there are some game designers who are really good at maths and can calculate that out. I've actually seen under the hood of some games that people are developing that they're basically modeled out in Excel spreadsheets. I'm not like that. I do it very much more intuitively. But I play a lot of games, and I think as you do that, you begin to see different mechanisms that work to make a game, on the one hand, feel fair and fun, but on the other, feel strategic and challenging. And it's that kind of balance as a game designer that you're always striving to make. It's not an easy one to make, and it takes, realistically, no matter if you're really good at maths or not, hundreds and hundreds of play tests with different kinds of players to see if it works. So in this game, I think it's based around a fairly simple mechanic, which is that you draw 2 cards to your hand, and then you use those cards to try and make a bid for the assets you want at a market. And you know one of the cards in that market and what the cost will, a little bit about what the cost of the asset will be, but part of it's mysterious. So every turn, you're making a bit of a gamble. And then the rest of the game just builds complexity on top of that very simple mechanic, which is part skill and part chance. So then we add competitive elements that allow you to sabotage your opponent, We add components that allow you to save up resources for later. And then to add even more complexity, we add alternate routes or strategies to victory. So when we get especially to levels 3 and 4 of the game, which are a little more complex, you maybe aren't just trying to get those 5 assets to win. Maybe actually you're trying to secretly build a spaceship to get off the planet and avoid the revolution. Maybe you're playing the celebrity who actually wins in the case of the revolution because the people spare you. Or maybe you're playing the toady who ties their victory to another player. So the idea here is that you want to give players options that they can judge based on the hand they've been dealt, literally and metaphorically. What's the best pathway forward for them? And then make those strategies counterbalance each other so that you're not just, it's not like 5 people around a table all playing a game against the game. They're playing against each other as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're recording this on the 19th of March, 2025, for context. Generally speaking, this is a time of rampant inequality that's only gotten worse in recent years. It's a time of oligarchy and perhaps fascism, thinking of the US in particular, to say nothing of the renewed...
I'd better realize this is a time when the answer is, if you understood the left, you would know the answer to this question. So I'm just going to put it out to the chat. I want to know how many of you have been paying attention. Because if you understand what the leftist utopia looks like, what the Marxist utopia looks like, what the goal is, things I've covered extensively on this channel, if you understand this, you will be able to answer this question. Would gambling be allowed in a pure Marxist society? What do you guys think? Looking for answers in the chat. Ooh, Alex! Ah! I'm so happy. I'm so happy right now. Sam in with the win. Sam actually got the first one. There will be no money in the Marxist utopia. They want to get rid of money. There will be no money. You will have ration cards and you will only have ration cards. There will be no money. Everyone has access to the same resources. Money is a form of private property. Money gives you access to more resources. They want to eliminate money. They want to eliminate the banks. Very good, Sam. Alex, I loved this answer. Gamble with what? No money. There would also be no need to gamble because everyone has access to everything they need. And so there would be no reason to gamble. No money. Everything is provided for. Now, do I think that they would allow gambling like for fun? Yeah, I mean, I do. I think you can barter with stuff. I'm sure there, like in the Marxist utopia, there would be like, gambling with like ration cards or things like that. So do I think that they're going to allow you to play poker? Yeah, I think I do. I'm sure there's going to be games and people always that's just human nature. But the undercurrent of it is like maybe gambling would even become a bigger thing, like in a different way, because people have access to whatever they need. So, I mean, would it even make sense to gamble ration cards? I don't know, because in their mindset, they have access to everything they need, and it would just be for fun. But I'm sure something like some people play poker for fun. Some people play blackjack for fun. You get some poker chips. There's no money involved. Something like that. Yeah, absolutely they would allow. But you don't own private property. So you can't gamble with, you can't put up your house. You don't own a house. But good question. Good question. Let me just scroll through the chat. Exactly. Exactly. If you have access to everything you need, then you don't need any of that stuff. But for fun, yeah, probably.
Horrors in Gaza over the last couple of days. All of which is to say we are living in very scary times. And so I think when we're thinking about resistance, to all of the above, do you see games like this one having a place in our arsenal or in our toolbox? What place do they have when we're sitting with these pretty terrifying wider political contexts?
Yeah, well, maybe I'd answer that 3 ways. I think there's something about games that are good for our souls. To dwell with the word I'm not so comfortable uttering, there's an aspect of games that I think are important for political education. And I think there's an element of games that are even more political than that, because they allow us to model different ways of being and cooperating together. And I'll briefly speak about each. I think ultimately we do live in terrifying and terrible times. And I think one of the aspects of what it means to be a human is that when we're faced with such times, we also need respite from just constantly worrying. I mean, there's not much we can do as individuals. The only way we can resist these forces is by building solidarity and building strategically to overthrow them. But we're not going to do that 24 hours a day. And a lot of that also requires conviviality. It requires that we come together and enjoy ourselves together. We build collective joy, and we instantiate what makes it worth being alive in the world.
Wait. Breaking news. Oh, hang on. Other breaking news. Offensive Saint, you got baptized? Congratulations. But that wasn't the breaking news that I stopped for. That was just a nice little aside. Breaking news that has nothing to do with anything but is hilarious. Hang on. Just loading. Oh, that wasn't what I wanted to do. Maury Povich has responded to Elon Musk. Elon Musk the other day said that he gave Ashley St. Clair like $3 million, but he didn't even know if he was the father of Ashley St. Clair's child, but he still gave her $3 million. And Maury Povich has responded saying, "Want to find out? We're getting our Elon Musk, Maury, not the father moment." And Ashley's gonna run off the stage crying. I just want it noted for the record that I called her a whore the minute she announced that she had a kid with Elon Musk, and all the other conservative influencers were like, "Congratulations, Ashley. This is so wonderful. It is so wonderful to bring a child into the world. You are so lucky to have Elon Musk's baby, Ashley." And all the conservative influencers were like kissing Ashley St. Clair's ass for like a day because they thought that Elon Musk and Ashley St. Clair were in a relationship, and they were trying to get close to him. And then everyone starts to realize that Elon is really pissed off that Ashley's posting about this shit. And then apparently Elon Musk cut Ashley's child support because he was pissed off at how she was behaving. And then Ashley sold her Tesla and got it videoed and put on the internet. And then Laura Loomer posted it, and now Elon Musk is best friends with Laura Loomer. And then Elon said, "I don't even know if that kid's mine, but I'll take the test." And now Maury Povich, just like, this is how amazing our world is. Maury Povich has weighed in and is offering to do the paternity test, in which he will say, "You are not the father, Elon Musk, because Ashley St. Clair is a whore and always has been, and you shouldn't have slept with her, and that was a really bad call, bro. I know you're a trillionaire and you have all the money in the world and you don't need to worry about that stuff, but like, are you stupid to impregnate Ashley St. Clair?" I want my "you're not the father" moment. Ashley's gonna fall down. She's running off stage crying. Oh, Maury's gonna have to do another 15 paternity tests to find out who the father is. Oh God. This is our world, guys. Anyway, back to our show. Back to our show. And Chad, I did pull up that link. Chad sent me a link to the game website, and it has a video of the game. So we'll watch that after this.
And I'll come back to this question about then whether games should always be cooperative or whether sometimes they should be competitive in a little bit. But let me say that I think even coming together around a competitive game can be extremely affirming and joyful and interesting. And I think that's important in these challenging times. Now, I also think the game obviously is intended as a form of political education. And it begins with a very vulgar realization that most people have, which is it's completely unacceptable to have billionaires. Billionaires must be abolished. There should be no billionaires. Hopefully that can happen non-violently. But in any case, they need to all go. Their money needs to be and reserve.
This guy is releasing a game called Billionaires and Guillotines, and he's like, listen, man, I really hope we can get rid of all the billionaires non-violently, but in any case, we have to get rid of them somehow.
Resources need to be removed from them, and they need to be eliminated. Hopefully, they will just go back to living as normal scumbags like the rest of us. But I leave that to history to decide. The game begins with the upsurge of...
created a game with the goal of beheading the fucking billionaires. This used to get people permanently banned on Twitter for saying stuff like this. Not if you were on the left, only if you were on the right.
Anti-billionaire sentiment that is, you know, crescendoing at this moment. But it then asks players to think through where that actually comes from and why billionaires act the way they do. Right now, I think a lot of the vulgar interpretation of the billionaire is that they're sort of a greedy, nefarious individual. And I think, of course, greed has something to do with it. But actually, what the game tries to show a player is that there are structural forces that impose themselves on a capitalist, in this case a billionaire, that compel them to act the way that they do. And it's not really a moral judgment of whether Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Bill Gates is the better tech overlord. It's a question about why do we even have tech overlords and why is it that capitalism compels them to behave in a certain way. And that's the kind of political education the game wants to do. Now, this maybe leads us to our final point for me about why I think games are important in this moment, which is I take a lot of inspiration from the philosopher C.T. Wynn's book, Games, Agency as Art, where he says that, you know, what's unique about a game, and especially think about a game as a form of artwork, is that ultimately it's a way of experimenting with different forms of agency, different ways of being able to act in the world that we might not otherwise be able to encounter. So, just for example, I'm making another game right now called Comrade Orca. And in it, you play a pod of killer whales taking revenge on the shipping industry for its destruction of whales. In that game, I'm really trying to think through what would it feel like to be an orca in a pod, to hunt together. I mean, you can watch nature documentaries and see the amazing coordination of these incredible animals. What would it mean to sense the world not through eyesight, but through echolocation? So I'm really trying to think, like, what is the agency of an orca in the world? And how could we, for a moment, step out of our agency as workers in a capitalist economy and into this very different way of being? And I think
this guy wants us to become whales? This guy wants us to become whales. He wants to abolish capitalism by making everyone act like a whale? This guy has smoked way too much weed. Reagan, I got that link. We'll watch it. Like, we can spend the entire episode watching this board game stuff. This is fascinating.
A similar thing happens even with billionaires. You know, what the game asks a player to do ultimately is think for a moment, what would it be like to be these figures that we think are sort of all-powerful? And then realize that there are rules to the game that they're playing that constrain them, not as much and not with as many consequences as the rest of us, but still constrain them and shape what they do. I think games are an amazing way to explore how people, no matter if they're billionaires or workers, find a sense of agency within dominant structures, and ultimately how those structures might be changed. And I think there's a lot of impulse within the political and radical gaming world to say, well, then we should have games that are cooperative, you know, that model different ways of cooperating and building the world otherwise. And I agree, and I've designed some games like that, and I think they're important. But I also think there's a lot to be said for games like this one that are competitive, and where, on the one hand, you're learning what it would be like to be a billionaire and see the same system that impinges upon you, but from the perspective of the powerful. And I also think, even in the most competitive of games, we're still having a convivial experience. We're still coming together around a table and consenting to play by a common set of rules. We are still together sharing the experience that we all want to make fun, not only for ourselves, but for everyone else. I mean, that's what it means to play a game together, or to play together in general, is that you're trying to increase the enjoyment of everyone around the table, regardless of if you're competing or cooperating. And I think that is a muscle we can't afford not to build as we think about what a new world is going to feel like.
Yeah, and actually that leads into my last question, which I guess is, this stage of capitalism is really marked by gamification in all aspects of our lives. There's a booming gaming industry and the streaming, that goes along with that as well. Pretty much any app you'd care to name will have some sort of gamification built in it to sort of generate engagement. And at the more sinister end of the spectrum, we all know how drones are operated in war zones. So, that's all part of the spectrum. But we had Pluto and Vagabond series author Nick Mirzoff on the podcast earlier this month, in which he spoke about the importance of the analog and the face-to-face as part of building meaningful connection and solidarity with one another. I suppose it's the conviviality that you're talking about, right? So I guess a lot of board games will have solo player variations in their rule books, but they are for the most part something you do in a room, around a table, with friends. It's not mediated by a screen. It's that sort of analog interaction, crucially. Yeah, do you think that's partly why we've seen such a surge in board games' popularity in the last 10 or 15 years?
Oh, absolutely. And I think it was already growing in the last 10, 15 years as people feel oversaturated by their digital life and also, frankly, played. Like, we have been played by these tech companies. We were told that the internet and giving over the internet to corporations would allow us to experience greater horizons of education, romance, friendship, discovery, and we've basically been railroaded into a series of unwinnable games. The complete enshittification of the internet, but it's even worse because it's the enshittification of the internet plus this sort of labyrinth of...
Is this a real word? Enshittification? Is this a real word? Hang on. ChatGPT will tell me. My boyfriend ChatGPT will tell me everything. Is enshittification. No, it's not even spelling it correctly. Enshittification. A real word. Enshittification isn't a formal word you'd find in a dictionary, but yes, it's real in the sense that it's widely used and understood in modern internet culture. It was coined by an author and activist, Cory Doctorow, who used to describe the predictable way the platforms, especially the tech ones, behave over time. Okay, it's missing something. Hang on, there seems to be one missing. Hang on. Okay. I don't know. So I guess it's a tech term. There's a Wikipedia page for it. Eventually things become terrible for everyone. Okay, I understand now. It's just a funny word. Enshittification. You couldn't find a better word to describe this than enshittification.
Meaningless, stupid tasks that we're all constantly forced to undertake in order just to navigate a government website or to input our credit card data or to apply for any number of life-saving medicines or treatments that we might need. It's just a hellscape. And so I think people are looking for an escape from that, and they are looking for a way to come back together in person. I think that increased with the pandemic as people realized their need for one another and the need for face-to-face interaction. I think there's a whole generation of young people who came out of the pandemic who want what we all should want, which is prompts or props for social intercourse. It's actually not easy just to find new friends and sit down and have a conversation with them. It's nice to have the game in the middle of the table that can mediate your interactions with each other. So I think there's a huge hunger for this. And I'm very, very optimistic about board games as a space for exploring that and also for stimulating political conversations and shared affects and feelings of solidarity and conviviality that could lead to other sorts of things. Now, like I think a lot of artists, and I don't think board game design is an art all the time, but it maybe has some crossover. I'm not convinced that every game needs to necessarily have a heavy-handed propaganda message. I mean, Billionaires and Guillotines wears its politics on its sleeve, but there are lots of games that simply allow us to be together and interact together in new and different ways. And I think that's valuable in and of itself. But I also think games that have an axe to grind and bring people together around a shared hatred of, for instance, billionaires could maybe be useful in this moment. You know, I often think about how capitalism prepares us for certain kinds of politics. And in an era of, one of the book projects I'm working on now asks this question, well, how did financialized gamified capitalism lead to the fascist issue that we're now facing? And I argue that ultimately this form of capitalism prepared us all to be players in the kind of slang vernacular meaning of it, in the sense of like hustlers. Like we all had to learn how to have multiple different games afoot to try and survive in a neoliberal economy without guarantees. And yet we all feel like we played a game and we got cheated. We all feel like we played a game and we got played. And I think it's easy for fascists to then turn around and say, well, the reason you got played is not because of these billionaires who basically made off like criminals and bandits during this period. It's because of these cheaters down at the bottom of the social hierarchy, migrants, benefits claimants, etc., who are allegedly cheating the system and therefore robbing the rest of us of our well-earned chances to ascend the meritocracy. But this is a lie, but it's a very compelling lie precisely because it emerges from the kind of mythscape that we all grew up in this moment of neoliberal capitalism. And I think we can play games to sort of, in some ways, deprogram ourselves or reprogram ourselves away from the way that we have been forced to craft ourselves as subjects in this horrifying suicidal system.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we've said, the new game Billionaires and Guillotines, the Kickstarter is being launched in just a matter of days. In fact, by the time we air this episode, it'll probably already have launched.
Oh,
so
good.
Tell us more. You know, how can people find this project and back the project?
Can we fund this?
Yeah, search for Billionaires and Guillotines in any search app, and you will be taken to our Kickstarter page where you can buy a copy of the game. It'll be manufactured this spring and summer and shipped by the fall with some provisos about the chaos of global shipping, thanks to certain billionaires misrunning the world's largest economy. You can also get a whole bunch of other stuff as part of that Kickstarter campaign. You can get, as we mentioned, the first expansion kit where you get to play the rebels or a rebel sympathizer in Billionaires and Guillotines. You can get Pluto books, including some of my books, as well as other books about wealth inequality and billionaires. You'll be able to get swag like t-shirts, sweaters, tote bags, mugs, and you'll also be able to get some extra prizes that we're throwing in. You'll be the first of your friends to get the game as well. You can also, via that, go online to watch a tutorial of me teaching how to play the game. You can even download the game for free and print it at home if you want to try it with your friends before buying it. And there's lots of other goodies to discover as well.
We can download it and print it for free?
All right. Well, Max, thanks so much for coming and talking to me on Radicals in Conversation. You know, it's really exciting to see the game and hear more about it. And good luck with the Kickstarter.
All right. That looks like the end of that. And listen, we did have some other stuff to watch today, but now this has become board game day. So we'll just have to watch the other stuff another time. Because now we have another video to watch. Because both Chad and Reagan were trolling around and they found the website for Billionaires and Guillotines. And on the website, not that. I guess just do from here, I guess. On the website, they have an hour-long tutorial about the gameplay. And so we're going to watch that. For sure. We have to watch this. I'm like fascinated by this now. But let's just take a look around. We do have their Kickstarter page. They have raised almost $10,000 of $36,000 that they want. They have 130 backers already. It just launched. Like literally just launched. want to see the rewards. Let's see. So this is in pounds. So we can get, it costs $42. Okay. And then we can get the add-on expansion pack. We can get books. We can get more books. And we can get an extra copy of the game. This is, you know, pretty reasonable Kickstarter. Looks like they're doing pretty well. They literally just launched. Let's look in their comments section or their updates section. That's just, like, so I guess it just literally launched. It literally launched today. It launched today. And they already have almost $10,000 raised. Thanks, Kazmar. Appreciate it. Let's see. Comments. Love the project. I'm really excited about it. This is awesome. Okay. Let's go back to their website. Let's look around a little bit. We're going to watch the video tutorial, so I don't want to go deep into it. But, like, look at... These aren't even good graphics. Oh, come on. Oh, look at this. Research Institute, Mansion, Rebel, Tabloid Empire, Luxury Disaster Bunker, Golf Course, Super Deluxe Jet, Gang of Lawyers, and a Scam Charity. You can download the game. We might have to do that, guys. We might have to download the game. We might have to do this. Download now. No, I don't want to pay you money, though. Just take me to the download. I don't want to give you money. That would be capitalism. I'm not giving you my capitalism. Let me get the rule book as well. Let's see, that's working on it. No, it is? Okay. Let's see. Oh my god! Holy shit! Oh my god! Oh, I'm gonna... Yeah, I think... Yeah. Yes, I think I'll be doing a write-up on this, Reagan. Yes, I do. What a time to be alive. Oh my god! Look at this, look at this, look at this, look at this. Why isn't this scrolling? Why aren't you scrolling? Why aren't you scrolling? You should be scrolling right now. Hang on, let's just reload this. Come on. Load for me. Don't. Come on. Come on, computer. It's just a PDF. Oh, why? Okay. It's scrolling, but it's not scrolling. Why isn't it scrolling? It's scrolling, but it's not scrolling. This is so weird. Hang on. Let me see if I can load this differently. Is it working now? No. What the hell? Does this not want me to share? It's scrolling, but it's not scrolling. This is so weird. I've never had this happen before. Okay, well, I'm having some technical difficulties on that one. Let me try this over here. Let me just try putting it in a different browser, and maybe we can look at it a different way. It's not working here either. Okay, this is a little bit better. Okay. If I go here, will it work? So it's doing the same thing here. So it's not scrolling, but oh, now it's working. Now it's working. No one touch anything. No one touch anything. You hear me? Okay. Let's see. Apparently I just had to give it a second. Just needed a minute. It needed a bathroom break or something. Okay. Here's all the things that we can print out. It's definitely taking a minute to like load the different pages. They're bastardizing my plague doctor. You can't have my plague doctor. I'm the only one that's allowed to use a plague doctor. When I do my game, when I do my anti-communist game, it's going to have a plague doctor in it for sure. So there's cards we can print out. Okay, I see. These are just printouts for cards. Oh, is this a symbol for fascist? There they have the they literally have the guillotine on the card. Bro. Oh my. Oh! Trump is the property speculator. Trump is breaking news. Donald Trump is in the Billionaires and Guillotines game as the property speculator, which means the Socialists created a game in which they are literally threatening to murder Trump. Everyone understands this, right? This game is called Billionaires and Guillotines. The purpose of this game is that the billionaires keep amassing more stuff until the proletarian try to violently overthrow them and cut off their heads with guillotines. And one of the billionaires is Trump. This game is literally threatening Trump. This game is acting out, violently overthrowing Donald Trump. Are you shitting me? Are you shitting me? How is this real? That's Rupert Murdoch. That's is that H.W. Bush or is that W. Bush? I think that's H.W. Bush. Oh, the Elon Musk. Holy shit! Holy shit! They've got Elon Musk, H.W. Bush, Rupert Murdoch, and Donald Trump. So the game is threatening to murder Elon Musk too? Oh god. This is so great. This is Christmas and my birthday and Valentine's Day all in one. This is great. Excellent job, Socialists. Excellent job. I don't know who the war profiteer is. Any guesses on who the war profiteer is? Is that maybe Nancy? Is that Nancy? Her hair's too long to be Nancy, though. I don't know. Wow. Wow. And then we've got the rule book. Let's go here. There's Trump again. And we're going to watch the video where they talk about the gameplay, so we're not going to go extensively through the rule book right now. Oh, I can scroll again. Look how great that is. All right, that's not as exciting. All right, well, I think that the most responsible thing for us to do is to watch this video where they talk about the gameplay, and maybe they will elaborate more on wanting to murder Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And the stream might go a little longer today than I thought it would, but hey, we've stumbled upon something fun and interesting, so what can you do? Guys, please mount the like button for me if you would be so kind. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not subscribed already. If you want to send me in a super chat for showing you stuff that literally no one else is showing you on the internet, this just got launched today. And the reason I know about this is that I have a literal command center built in Discord to monitor everything these leftist groups say and do. So when you find stuff out from me, you're not getting it secondhand. I go directly to the source. I monitor all these groups. I track all of them. And so when stuff comes up like this, we can jump on it literally before anyone else. So if you appreciate the work I do, please feel free to send in a super chat or support my work on Substack. I would really appreciate it because I can't do this without your guys' help. All right, let's learn how to play this game. Unlisted video.
Of Billionaires and Guillotines. Now, I'm going to show you how to play this game if we were playing with 5 players. So that's all of the billionaires here on the board. As I've mentioned, the objective of Billionaires and Guillotines is to collect all 5 of the assets indicated on their cards. The assets look like this. There are these colored tokens that you'll find in the kit. They come in one of 5 different categories. You have vanity, legacy, power, influence, and toys. So what you're going to do to start out the game is you're going to take the assets of the given color and category. These represent toys. They include things like a super deluxe jet, a art treasure, a private island. You're going to take those tokens and you're going to place them on the market card. These cards, these large cards here that say toys or vanity or legacy on them, these represent markets where the
Okay, so I understand that you're new here, but we do have rules in my chat. Number 1 rule is don't be a dick. Number 2 rule is no whining. That keeps the chat nice for everyone. I've seen you register the complaint now multiple times that you don't like this. What I would say is no one's making you stay. If you don't want to be here, you don't have to be here. But please rein in the whining because I don't like it and it drives me crazy and it drives everyone else crazy too. Your complaint has been noted and now we are sitting here and we're watching this game. Okay? If you don't like it, you don't have to be here.
billionaires can go to try and buy these different assets. Now you'll notice that there are actually 4 of each asset, but only 3 spaces for them on the markets. That's because when you're playing with either 3 or 4 players, every player is going to get a free asset. That just evens out the game. And if you look at your billionaire card, you'll notice that each billionaire needs different combinations of assets, and each billionaire needs 2 of one kind. So this here, the aristocrat, needs 2 legacy. Those are the yellow houses. So since we're playing a 4 or 5 player game, the aristocrat is going to get a free legacy. The war profiteer is going to get free power. The tech overlord is going to get free toy. The property speculator is going to get a free vanity, ooh, a celebrity spouse. And the media baron is going to get 1 free influence. So this is how we begin the game. Now, in order to play this game correctly, you're going to need this deck of cards. This deck of cards is made up of cards in all 5 of the suits. There's a green lightning bolt suit, a yellow bomb suit, a blue lock suit, a peach-colored satellite dish suit, and a purple diamond suit.
I already know what my headline's going to be when I write about this. And it's going to be something to the effect of Kickstarter is platforming a game that literally threatens the murder of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Like, that's going to be the headline.
Now, these cards are numbered between 1 and 3 in each suit. There's an equal number in each. The 1s are fairly common, the 2s are medium, and the 3s are fairly rare. We're going to shuffle these up pretty well. And what we're going to do after we've shuffled the deck is we're going to deal 2 cards to each of these markets. They're going to go here at the bottom of the market, like so. And the top card of the 2 is going to go face up. Didn't shuffle these super well. So this is what it looks like at the beginning of the game. Now these cards which are laid on the market represent the cost to buy one of these assets. And when your billionaire goes to use their ill-got wealth to buy an asset, they're going to try and judge the price, and if they have enough resources to afford it, based on the card that's face up, but also the mysterious card, or later in the game, cards that are face down. So what's going to happen in this game is that each player is going to take turns trying to get those 5 assets, and the first player to get 5 assets will win immediately. If you're confused, you can take a look at this card. This is one of the how to play cards, and it says at the top, your turn. And it's going to instruct you on what to do on your turn. I'm just going to put it here just so you can follow along.
Gave helpful
so it says on the card that you're going to do basically 2 things at this stage of the game at least. We'll add a little more complexity as we get to the upper levels, but we're just playing level 1 for now. The first thing you're going to do is draw a card. So the shuffled cards, I didn't shuffle them very well, but you know, there we are. There we go. We're going to put the draw deck of cards over here. The first thing you're going to do on your turn is draw a card from the deck. Now, in Billionaires and Guillotines, you may never ever have more than 2 cards in your hand. If you have 3 or more cards in your hand, you have somehow cheated, in which case, congratulations, you are a very good billionaire, but you are a very bad player. So in this game, you will only ever have 2 cards in your hand. At the beginning of the game, every player is going to get 1 card for free. So let's give all of the billionaires 1 card. And let's say I'm playing the war profiteer here. I'm just showing you my hand. Usually this would be secret, but you can see it here. At the beginning of your turn, you're going to draw a 2nd card. So this is what's in my hand as the war profiteer. So on my turn, I've done the first thing, which is draw a card, and now I can take one of 3 actions. You can either make a bid and try and buy one of these assets. You can swap cards from your hands for ones at the market, or you can try and throw a card into a market, and I'll teach you all 3 of them now. The first and most important of all of these is learning how to bid on an asset. This is the way that you buy the assets that you need in this game. And the way you do that is quite simple. So this is my hand as the war profiteer. I have a 3 of diamonds and a 3 of satellite dishes. So I have together cards totaling 6 points in my hands. Now let's say that I wanted to make a bid on legacy. You'll see on my billionaire card, if I show it to you, that I have 1 power that was given to me for free at the beginning of the game. I need 1 more influence, 1 more legacy, and 1 more power, and 1 more toy in order to win. So I'm going to take a bid on legacy. What I would do in that case, this is one of the actions I can take, is I would lay my cards on the table. So I have cards totaling 6, and I would reveal the cards here in the market. I have 6 points. In the market, this represents the cost of the asset. There's points totaling 3. So because my 6 beats the 3 in the market, I win. All of these cards now go to a discard pile over here by the draw pile, and I get to pick any one of these assets that's at the market. The luxury disaster bunker, the scam charity, the research institute. I'm going to pick a research institute. It's coming over here to my billionaire card, and my turn is now over. Pay passes to the left to the aristocrat. Now, before my turn ends, because I was successful at winning this legacy, the research institute, I'm going to deal new cards to this market. However, as in life, there is inflation in billionaires and guillotines. And because the legacy tokens are now scarcer, there are only 2 of them, rather than dealing 2 cards here, 1 face up and 1 face down, I'm going to deal 3 cards, 2 face down, 1 face up. The top card in billionaires and guillotines is always face up, so we know a little bit about the cost of what's in the market. So now for the next player, legacy is more expensive. So let's go now to the aristocrat and see what the aristocrat has. This is what's in the aristocrat's hand. They're going to draw a card. That's what you do at the beginning of your turn. And now it's their turn to bid. Now let's say that the aristocrat also wants to buy legacy. They put their cards on the table. They flip these cards over. And it looks like they've lost. They only have 3 points in their hand versus 5 in the market. Now, under most circumstances, this would be what would happen. You would simply lose. All of the cards get gathered up. They all go to the discard pile, just like we did before. And 3 cards are dealt to the legacy market because there are only 2 assets left. However, things are not so simple. Because...
Funny, if you check his profile, he's part of a research institute. That doesn't surprise me at all in any way. We'll look into that at some point, I'm sure. Thank you.
Look, the billionaire, the aristocrat, has 3 points. There are 5 points in the market. But look up here. Above every billionaire, you'll see that they have their unique suit. The tech overlord, for instance, has a green lightning bolt. The war profiteer has a yellow bomb. The aristocrat has a purple diamond. The property speculator has a blue lock. And the media baron has a peach-colored satellite dish. If you see cards in a market that match your billionaire, they count for you rather than against you. So because these are purple diamond cards and the aristocrat's suit is the purple diamond, They come to the aristocrat, and in fact, the aristocrat's bid is 1, 3, 4, 6, 8
This
versus
is
0.
way too complicated for me already.
A
I have no idea what's
commanding
going
win.
on right now.
So these 8 points all go to the discard pile.
I'd be a horrible
The
billionaire.
aristocrat gets their scam charity, and now, because there is only one asset left in the legacy market, there will not just be 2 or 3 cards, there will in fact be 4 cards, 3 face down and 1 face up. So as a billionaire, you always want to look at the top of the piles and see which markets are going to be in your favor. All right, I've shown you now how to make a bid. When you run out of assets, like for instance, let's just say that this final legacy asset was bought, the market will close and it goes upside down. And there's a special little bonus game where you can ask some funny questions about your billionaire while you wait for that market to reopen. But for now, it remains open. All right, so that's the first of 3 actions you can take on your turn. It's called making a bid. The second of the 3 actions you can take, and just a reminder, you can always find more information here on the How to Play card. The second type of action you can take is called swapping. So let's say that I'm playing the Tech Overlord. This is what I've got in my hand. I have a 3 of satellite dishes in peach. Now let's say for some reason I wanted to have a different card. I could take this card from my hand and I could swap it with any face-up card on the table. So for instance, I could swap it with this 3 of locks here, and that would be my turn. Now, why would you do this, you might ask? Well, let's say that the situation was slightly different. Let's say that my billionaire had a 1 of diamonds. I could swap for a more valuable card. So I could trade my 1 of diamonds, which is usually in my hand, here for the 3 of locks. And now, the next time play comes back to me, I have a much more valuable card to try and make a bid with. The second thing you might do is realize that another player would be very...
So I know some people are lost right now, and I'm lost too, but I want to keep listening to this because I feel like he's going to say some stuff that's going to be crazy in the context of the gameplay. And so I'm kind of following you. You're trying to collect assets. You have different ways you can collect those assets. It's an inherently unfair game, which is going to piss people off because they believe that capitalism is an inherently unfair system, and there are all sorts of ways to rig it and stuff like that. And then you can trade with other. So I'm kind of getting it, but like really, we're listening to this to hear the communist talk about like what he believes and like the purpose of this game, and hopefully we'll find some spicy quotes.
Advantaged by having access to a certain card. So look, here's the 3 of satellite dishes. This is very good for my rival, the media baron. So maybe I want to trade this for this so that the media baron can't buy influence as easily because that's their color. Now, it did just make it much easier for the property speculator to buy it next turn, but maybe that's not my concern. The other reason is this. Let's say that you are the, let's say that this was the situation. Here I am, I'm the Tech Overlord, it's my turn. I have a 2 in my suit, in my hand, and I want to buy Vanity. I could, for instance, swap the cards here, take this to my hand so I have a higher bid for next turn, but now also, when the round comes back to me next time, if I make a bid here at Vanity, I'm not only going to benefit from the higher card that I took to my hand, I'm also going to benefit from this card in my suit that's now here at the Vanity market. So you can play a little bit tactically to make sure that cards are in place when you need them. There's a second type of swapping too, and this will become even more important a bit later in the game at level 2, but for now I'll show it to you anyway. You have to take an action. You must make a bid or swap or throw a card. I haven't taught you throw yet, but I will in a second. But let's say none of those you really want to do. You just want to bide your time. The other way you can swap cards is by swapping any 2 face-up cards on the table. So for instance, you could exchange these 2, or you could exchange these 2. And you might do this for all manner of reasons. You might do it to deprive your opponent of an advantageous card for them. Excuse me, I can't talk tonight. You might do it to advantage yourself for next time the bid comes around. You can swap 2 cards face up on the table. That's the second way you can swap. Now, the third action you can take is called throwing. And this is where you take a card from your hand. So let's say it's my turn as the tech overlord. These are the cards I have in my hand. And you can take a card from your hand and throw it face down secretly in a pile, and you add it. So actually, the cost at the market is going to increase. These represent ways that billionaires are trying to game the market and take advantage of each other. And if you throw a card face down in a pile like this, you are then allowed to take a new card to your hand from the deck as a reward. So you are rewarded for adding to the pile. Now, why might you do that? Well, very briefly, there's a few reasons. Let's say, for example, that in my hand, I had these two cards. I could throw this green card, which matches my suit, into a pile so that it will give me the advantage next time if I make a bid here, because I know that there's a 2 in my suit here that will count for me as well. And I might get a second card. So if I have a low card that's not very useful to me, I might throw that into a pile here and take a new card in the hopes of getting something better.
All right, can
and
we
lo
talk
and
about the
behold,
revolution
I got
yet?
something a little bit better. The other reason you might do it is to make things more difficult. And this becomes especially important when one of your opponents looks like they are on the road to winning. Let's say that I'm afraid the aristocrat's going to win and I know they need toys. I might throw a card into the toy pile to make it more expensive for them, and I get a replacement here. So we've been through already the 3 basic actions in this game. You draw a card to begin with at the beginning of your turn, up to a hand limit of 2. You can never draw a third card. Draw up to a hand limit of 2. You only draw 1 card per turn, and you can never have more than 2 cards in your hand. So let's say you have these 2 cards, and then after you've drawn a card, you take one of 3 actions. You either make a bid at a market and try and win, you can swap cards for the face-up card, or you can throw a card face down and add it to a pile and take a new one as a replacement. This is the basic rules of level 1 of Billionaires and Guillotines. Now, if you're feeling like that's a bit overwhelming, I suggest you play a couple practice rounds right now. Pause this video. If, however, you want to learn more, I'm going to introduce you to 3 different types of cards before we end our tutorial of round 1.
Oh, good.
The scam card, the game the market card, and the audit card. These will help improve the gameplay immensely. But again, if you feel a bit overwhelmed, just try playing some practice rounds now and pause the video and come back and I'll teach you these cards. All right. So there are 3 different types of special cards that you will find in the Billionaires and Guillotines deck. They are Game the Market, Scam, and Audit. This is the Scam card, the Audit card, and the Game the Market card. There are, as you can see, 2 Audit cards. Now, the first thing I can tell you about these cards is that they act just like generic cards with the number indicated. So if, for instance, you have one in your hand, let's just say this is my hand, you could just use this as a bid of 5 on a market. So I could try and win at a market with these 5. Let's say I make a bid, I lay these down, I have a bid of 5, I'm trying for power, 5 versus 4, and I win. And remember, if I was the tech overlord, I'd win even more because these cards are in my suit. So it would be 5, 8, 9 versus 0. Okay, so you can use these cards in that way. Similarly, if this was here, if you made a bid of 4 here at the market for power, this would count 5 against you. 4 versus 5, and you would lose. Except, of course, the tech overlord would win because that comes to them. But this would count 2 against you. But that's not the most interesting way to use the cards that are indicated by these black and white hand symbols, because each of them also has an additional power as well. The audit is perhaps the most important card of them because it allows you to get an opponent to give back an asset. So on your turn, if you have this card in your hand, you can, instead of taking an action, that is, instead of making a bid, swapping cards, or throwing cards, you can discard this card to the discard pile. And by doing that, you can force an opponent of your choice to give back an asset of your choice. So let's say I'm playing the tech overlord. I've just discarded the audit card. I can force
the aristocrat to give back the cryogenic lab to the legacy. Don't change the number of cards down here at the legacy. They simply have to give back the asset, and the person who played the audit gets to choose. This represents when you rat out your opponent to the government and tell them they've been cheating on their taxes or otherwise doing bad billionaire things, and the government goes after them. That is the audit card.
They thought all this
The second kind of card you can play is called the scam card. It looks like this. If you play the scam card from your hand, if it's in your hand and you discard it, then what you can do is return an asset of your choice to a market in return for an asset from any other market. So let's say I'm playing the War Profiteer. I could return this research institute to the legacy market and instead take this pyramid scheme like that. The only rule with the scam is you cannot use this to win the game. So for example, if the game was really advanced and here I was, I also had an extra toy. And yes, you can have things that are not on your billionaire card. You can have extra things that sit beside your billionaire card if you want. You can't, on your final turn, play that scam card in order to swap out your private island for the tax haven you need to win the game. That's the only way that a scam is not allowed to be played. But otherwise, if things aren't that advanced, you can give back an asset and take a new asset that you need to replace it. That's the scam card. The instructions are right on the card. And then third, you have the game the market card. So game the market, if you play this card, it allows you to deal with a situation like we have here, where legacy, because people have been throwing cards into it, has become extremely expensive. So now there are so many cards here. How am I ever going to win that? Well, you take the game the market card and you lay it down instead of your action. And then what you do is you gather up all of the cards at all of the different markets. Here they are. All of these cards from all of the different markets. These ones should be in the discard pile. You shuffle up all of the, oh, let me make sure they're all facing the right way. You shuffle all those cards up. And now, starting where you like, you deal those cards evenly to all the different markets. So it's a way of redistributing the cards in the markets. You're gaming the market through your nefarious ways. And now, flip over the top cards at all the markets, as we always do. And now, finally, with the game the market card, after you've done this, after you've redistributed the cards to the different markets, you, and let's say here I'm the tech overlord, can make a bid with whatever you've got in your hand and the game the market card. So I have a bid of 4, because this was in my hand before. I have the game the market card, my bid of 4, and you can make it on a market of your choice. So let's say that I'm going to make the bid for vanity. Okay, so what have we got? A bid of 4 versus 1 versus 3 versus 2 for a total of 6. My bid of 4 doesn't beat the 6. So unfortunately, I do not get my asset. These cards all go to the discard pile. And of course, 2 new cards are dealt here. That is how you play those 3 special cards, the audit, the scam, and the game the market cards. You have, congratulations, completed the tutorial of level 1.
It might actually be fun.
It is the longest tutorial. The rest of the tutorials for the game are much shorter.
Like,
I suggest you pause.
I could see how this game could be fun once you understand the rules and you get to undercut your opponents and stuff like that. But what I want to hear about is the revolution. I want to know how the proletariat rise up. That's really what we're listening for. And I want to hear him talk about cutting the heads off the billionaires.
Pause here and continue to play the game, and then when you're ready to add some more complexity, or once somebody wins that game, you can come back and learn level 2 in the next video.
Here we go.
Hello again, this is Max Haven, designer of Billionaires and Guillotines, here to teach you level 2 of the game. At this level, we are going to introduce a few interesting new elements. We are going to introduce crisis cards. We are going to introduce the guillotine. We are going to introduce rebels, and we are going to introduce the panic phase.
They have a guillotine
So,
card.
I hope you have enjoyed playing level 1 and you're ready for something a little bit more complicated and a lot more fun. All right. The basic premise of Billionaires and Guillotines is that as our billionaire friends try and accumulate the wealth of the world, legacy, vanity, toys, influence, and power, they begin to gobble up more and more of the world's wealth, represented by these cards here. And as a result, they begin to unleash crises that affect everyone. So we have crises in this deck here. There are 12 crises cards. They represent things like killer robots, militias, debt crisis, pandemics, wildfires, poverty, conspiracy theories, doomsday cults, housing crisis, droughts, floods, infrastructure collapse,
Conspiracy
killer robots,
theories.
etc.,
The
etc.
same as killer
So,
robots.
in this second version of the
And
game, you're going to
plagues.
add a few elements in. You're going to add in these crisis cards. You're going to make sure that this guillotines here at the center of the table, you are going to add in these rebels. As the crises begin to cascade out of control, rebels are going to gather. And once all 10 rebels gather around the guillotine, that's it. It's game over. All the billionaires lose a lot more than their assets. But for now, let's just put these rebels to the side. And third, you have these panic cards, which I'll explain to you in a minute.
They all lose their heads. He's saying to murder the billionaires, just so we're all clear. This is a game about murdering billionaires. 2 of those billionaires being Donald Trump and Elon Musk, literally on their cards.
These give the billionaires one last chance to cooperate together,
Oh, yeah?
put aside their differences, make some sacrifices for the common good, or at least for them, their common good. All right, let's learn how to play. So, when you're playing with crises cards at level 2, the first thing you're going to do is take 4 of these cards randomly, and you are going to shuffle them into the deck. So, you're going to take these cards and just, with your draw deck, insert them randomly, and we're off to a good start. All right, shuffle up the deck and deal out the cards to the markets as before. Remember, the top card is always face up. You see one of the crisis cards has already appeared. 2 of the crisis cards have already appeared. And here we go. For now, I'm just going to show you this one as if the crisis card was not there. And just to make things very simple, I'm going to put things like that. All right. As the play continues, it becomes more and more likely that the billionaires are going to unleash crises. So let's say I'm playing the War Profiteer here, and I want to make a bid on legacy. Now, you'll remember that I have cards from my hand that I can bid against the market. And if my bid here beats whatever's in the market, I get to keep the asset. So let's say on my turn, I'm going to play these 2 cards, totaling 6 points, to try and take the Research Institute. I flip over the card and, uh-oh, it's a crisis. The pandemic spreads. So here, I have a bid of 6 versus 1, and the crisis counts 3 against me. That's why it has a 3 with a downward arrow. It always, always, always counts against the bidding billionaire when you find it in a market. So here I have 6 versus 4. I win. My 6 still beats. Therefore, so I would still get the asset, but the crisis has nonetheless been unleashed. When that happens, 3 things happen. First, the crisis is going to move over here after subtracting from my score. After counting against me, that's the first thing. Then the second thing is it's going to move over here by the guillotine. Let's put these extra cards to the side. Then we're going to place, you'll notice on this card that there are 2 little rat icons. That means that 2 rebels are going to get added to this card. 1, 2.
Wow.
And now, the third thing that's going to happen is 2 new crisis cards are going to get added to the discard deck. That means that when we reshuffle these cards, 2 new cards, there's going to be more cards, more crisis cards in the deck. It's going to be more likely that we find them in the rest of the game.
So essentially, every time capitalism causes problems for people, people get pissed off and they start to turn against the evil capitalists that they perceive are causing the problems. What does this sound like to you? We haven't talked about the 4 goals of the woke left in a while. The 4 goals of the woke left are always and perpetually the same. Gain as much power as possible, destabilize the system, attack capitalism, usher in their Marxist utopia. So socialists believe that all problems in the world are caused by capitalism. They try to destabilize capitalism by saying, look at how much things suck. All these problems were created by capitalism. If we just get rid of capitalism, then all these problems will go away. So they're literally playing this out in the game. They're saying, look, capitalism is creating all these crises. These crises are causing pain to people. Let's get rid of capitalism. The only way we can get rid of capitalism is all to become rebels to the system and cut off the heads of the billionaires and overthrow them. And then we get Marxism, and then all the problems will be gone. That's their argument. It's not my argument, obviously, but it's what they're saying.
Okay, so 3 things happen when you find a crisis card in the process of a bid. Number 1, it counts 3 against the player's attempt to buy the asset. Number 2, it travels to the middle of the board and rebels get added depending on how many rats there are on the billionaire card. And number 3, 2 new cards that are not yet in play, 2 new crisis cards are going to get added to the discard pile. You can, as I've already shown you, still win an asset even though you've caused a crisis. Now, what happens in a situation like this? Let's say that I'm playing the Tech Overlord. Here's my hand of cards. I have a hand totaling 4. Wait. The crisis here, debt, the debt crisis has been dealt on top of the market. Does that mean it gets activated as soon as it appears? No. It'll sit there, passive, not doing anything, until such time as a billionaire chooses to activate it by making a bid. And here I am, the reckless tech overlord. I'm going to make a bid of 4 points to try and take influence. What have I got? So my 4 points versus 6 in the market. Under most circumstances, I would lose. 6 beats 4, right? But of course, the tech overlord has the green lightning bolt as his suit. So it's in fact 7 versus 3. I would win. I can take my think tank. All these cards go to the discard pile except the crisis card. The crisis card is going to travel here to the middle of the table, and 2 new rebels are going to get added. And 2 new crisis cards are going to get added to the discard pile. If you ever get confused, there is a player aid card, the ones that look like this. It's called What to Do in a Crisis. It can remind you of what you're supposed to do and those 3 things that happen. All right, so you can even have a crisis if it's sitting face up. It just doesn't get activated until someone makes a bid on it. Now, what happens, you're probably asking, if in the course of the game you draw, you've got your cards in your hand, and you've drawn a crisis card. Now you have a crisis card in your hand. What are you going to do with it? Well, the important thing to tell you is you are not allowed to simply lay it down with the rest of a bid. For example, you can't say, I'm making a bid of 5 against toys. This always counts against a player, and it says right here on the card, do not use to bid or bribe. We'll get to bribes in level 3.
Oh, good.
So you cannot use it to make a bid. You must somehow get rid of this card. Now, how do you get rid of cards in Billionaires and Guillotines?
By throwing
you can't
them.
just discard them.
Throwing
That's not
them.
allowed. But you can, of course, swap them with a face-up card, like so. Or, if this is in your hand, you're also allowed to throw the card face down into a pile and take a new one as normal.
And make it someone
That's
else's
called throwing.
responsibility.
And the reason you might do that, of course, is to try and get rid of the card that's no good to you, to sabotage your opponent by putting a card that's going to be expensive to them, the crisis card, in the thing that they need. And you can either tell everyone that you're slipping this, like, yeah, you can say, yeah, that's a crisis card, or you can simply lie. You can say, no, that's just a normal card. Nothing wrong with putting it there. And then maybe it'll be a nasty surprise for everyone. But of course, if too many crisis cards start to happen and too many rebels start to gather, it's bad for everyone, because once 10 rebels gather all together here in the middle of the board, it's bye-bye billionaires, and the game is over. Now, something very special happens in this game called the panic phase. Once you've reached a point where there are at least 7 rebels gathered around the guillotine. This is the moment when crisis is looming for the billionaires. They begin to realize the gravity of the problem that they have created, and they need to somehow find a way to cooperate to reduce the number of rebels that there are threatening them. They have one and only one chance to cooperate, and these are represented by these panic cards. The panic phase of the game will only ever happen once in Billionaires and Guillotines. So if you don't meet the challenge to reduce the number of rebels through the panic, then it will never come again, and you just have to hope you survive. So what happens as soon as you reach your 7th rebel here in the game? Let's say that this is here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 rebels have gathered. Is the game pauses after the player's turn. And now it's time to have the panic phase. So the player who caused the last panic, or the last crisis, is going to shuffle these panic cards, and they're going to flip over the top one. These represent things that the billionaires can cooperate on in order to either deceive the public or distract the public from their anger at the crises that the billionaires have been causing. So in this case, it's the xenophobia card. Here the billionaires can cooperate to encourage xenophobia in the public, to turn people against each other so that they don't target the billionaires for gobbling up all the world's wealth.
This is
what
so
does this card
real.
mean? Well, in addition to being quite cute and funny, it means that the billionaires must somehow together agree to sacrifice one power, one legacy, and one vanity. And if they can make that sacrifice, which means that those players return those assets to the markets, if they can agree to make that sacrifice, then they are able to reduce the number of rebels by 5. Or if you're playing with a 6-sided die, you can add one in and you reduce the rebels by whatever the player rolls on a 6-sided die. Now you might be asking, how does that sacrifice get made? Who has to sacrifice which assets? And the answer is, that is a matter of negotiation between the billionaires, and there are no rules governing it. So now begins a phase of negotiation where you try and agree who and which billionaires are going to give back their hard-won assets to the market in order to meet
Socialists
this challenge.
are going to fucking love this game.
If the billionaires can agree,
this is like
and it might mean that one billionaire gives back 3 assets, or 3 billionaires give back 1 asset each, or any combination like that. If you succeed, then you will reduce the number of rebels either by 5, and they go over here again and disappear. The crises stay, but the rebels that were on them disappear. If you are unsuccessful, then nothing happens, and you set aside these panic cards for the rest of the game. You have now learned to successfully play level 2 of Billionaires and Guillotines. Give it a try. I hope you have a good time.
Yeah.
And once you're ready for another layer of complexity, I'll be back to teach you level 3, which allows you to bribe the government and get your way with government policy to favor your billionaire and their industry. I'll see you then.
This is fascinating. Inside the mind of a socialist.
All right, hello and welcome back to this tutorial for Billionaires and Guillotines. I am here to teach you level 3 of the game, in which we are introducing bribes, which uses these bribe envelopes, and government policy, which are cards that have green backs and look like this. All right, so in this game, you know that you are playing a billionaire trying to accumulate the wealth of the world. As you accumulate the wealth, your actions trigger crises. The crises mean the growth of rebellions, and if 10 rebels gather here on crisis cards around the guillotine, it's curtains for the billionaires and everybody loses. In level 3, we're going to learn about an element that is very realistic, I'm told, which is that the billionaires can try and bribe the government in order to get their way. Now, as you know, there's no such thing as a self-made billionaire. Every billionaire is really just a policy failure. Billionaires are pathologies in our society that basically swallow up the wealth because of bad government policy, and this is how bad government policy gets made. So, in this stage of the game, you should each billionaire who's playing should have a bribe envelope, and you're going to introduce these government policy cards. First, I'm going to teach you what the different government policies do, and then I'm going to teach you how to change government policies with bribes. Now, in Billionaires and Guillotines, when you're playing at level 3, there's almost always a government policy in effect. There are 9 government policy cards. They look like this. There should always be one in effect at any given time. And I'm just going to point out that there's one card called New Regime here, which we're not actually going to use until level 4. So let's take the New Regime card out of the deck, add it to the box, and we'll see it again when we get to level 4 of the game.
Okay.
Now, these different policies will do different things that advantage certain billionaires over others. The first I'll show you are the 5 market prioritization cards. These cards represent industries that the government is supporting, either through subsidies or contracts or tax cuts. So whenever one of these 5 cards is the government policy, all cards of that suit, their value is doubled. So for instance, if the government is supporting the telecom industry here, then cards like this will count for 2. This will count for 6, etc. It counts that way whether it's in your hand or in a market. It always is doubled. All cards of this suit are doubled as long as this policy is in effect. Or similarly, if we have this, then this card is doubled in value to 6 for all players. Now, as you might surmise, that is going to disproportionately advantage the aristocrat, because purple cards always benefit the aristocrat if they are making a bid and they find it in the pile. So for instance, let's say that the aristocrat makes a bid of 4 against this. All of these purple cards are doubled. So this is a bid of, in fact, 8 versus 8. But of course, because this purple card is in the billionaire's suit, it is in fact a bid of a whopping 14 versus 2. So it tends to, the policy, when it's set to a billionaire's suit, tends to disproportionately benefit that billionaire. All right. So that is the first 5 of the possible government policies. So if you get a chance to change government policy, it's often in your best interest to change it to favor your billionaire's industry or investments. But there are another 3 possible government policies that you could set, and they will be familiar to you from the more advanced part of level 1. The first is an audit. If you play the audit card, this allows you to target an opponent and force them to give back an asset of your choice to a market of your choice. So you can force your opponent to give back a token that perhaps you need in the future, or perhaps you can force them to give back a token that's helping them win. That's the audit card. Then you have another card that will be familiar to you, Game the Market. As you'll remember from level 1, when you play a Game the Market, basically what you do is you gather up all of the cards at all of the different markets here, as I'm doing right now. All the cards on the table, you shuffle them and you redistribute them, starting where you like, going in a circle evenly, or as evenly as possible. The top card is flipped up as normal. And now, if you're the one who played the Game the Market card, the Game the Market policy, you may immediately make a bid. So you can try and make a bid based on the new cards that are located at any market. That's the Game the Market policy. Then finally, something that we won't be familiar with yet is the Repress the Rebels policy card. If you change the policy to Repress the Rebels, you get to roll a die or flip a coin. If you have one outcome, you'll remove 1 rebel from a crisis card. Or if you roll the other side, or you get heads or tails, the opposite, you'll remove 2. So you'll remove either 1 or 2 rebels from any crisis card. This does a good deed for all of the billionaires by removing some rebels from play. Okay. Now, how do you get to choose to change government policy. How do you gain that power? All right, if you go back to your player aid card, you might remember that it looks like this.
This is so fucking
How to play.
complicated.
It has instructions. You astutely will have noticed that at the bottom of the card,
Is this
there
what
is
playing
a special
Dungeons and Dragons
instruction
is like? Because I never
saying
played
that.
that.
At the end of your turn, and only ever at the end of the turn,
I was never into gaming or
you
stuff
are
like that.
allowed to try and bribe the government. Now, let me show you. Let's say this is my hand. Here I am, the tech overlord. I have a hand here of 3 cards. At the end of my turn, and only at the end of my turn, I may place as many cards as I wish in my bribe envelope. 1 card can go in there. Get in there. 2 cards could go in there. 0 cards could go in there. And then my turn ends, I lay my bribe envelope to the side, and I can't touch it again at all until the end of my next turn. It's very important that you not do this at the beginning of your turn, in the middle of your turn. No, only at the end. Also, something else you can do, let's say it's my next turn. This is the card I have at the end of my next turn. You can do another thing, which is at the end of your turn, and only at the end of your turn, you may also remove cards from your bribe envelope. So essentially, your bribe envelope acts as a kind of bank that you can add and remove cards from at the end of your turn, with one stipulation, actually 2 stipulations. Stipulation 1 is you may not end your turn with any more than 2 cards in your hand. You could have 10 cards in your bribe envelope, or 2 cards, or no cards, but you could only ever have a maximum of 2 cards in your hand.
Slime catastrophe.
And remember, if you end your turn with 2 cards in your hand, you won't be able to draw a 3rd card at the beginning of your next turn. So it's often advantageous to end your turn with just 1 card in your hand, because a new one's coming to you on your next turn. So just remember, you can always add and remove as many cards as you want at the end of your turn, but you should always end up with 2, 1, or 0 cards in your hand, and as many cards as you want in your bribe envelope. The second stipulation is you may never, ever, ever put a crisis card in your bribe envelope. That is very much breaking the rules. It will ruin the game. So don't do it. Okay, so you've been stuffing your envelope full of cards. And let's say, you know, you've put some cards in there. I'm just going to show you. The tech overlords put a couple of cards in there. And now over the span of a few turns, so too has the war profiteer. At a number of points in the game, there will be a moment when the government policy will fundamentally change. This happens in 2 scenarios. The first is whenever a new crisis is activated, that is when it's activated in somebody's bid and it travels here to the middle of the board, at the end of that player's turn, the government is going to change its policy. So whatever the policy is going to be out of play for the moment. And then the player who caused the crisis is going to count to 3. They're going to say 1, 2, 3. And all players who want to try and change government policy may, if they want, put their envelopes forward. You don't need to put your envelope forward. You might have a full envelope and keep it back and not include it in this attempt to bribe the government. But any players who do try and bribe the government need to reveal now all of their cards in their envelope. Not some of their cards. It must be all of the cards in their envelope. And the player who has the most points in their envelope wins and now gets to set the government policy to whatever they like.
This is so
they
real.
Might set it, for instance, if it was the poor profiteer, they might set it to favor the arms industry. And that will remain in effect until the next time the government policy is changed. Now, all of the players who tried to bribe the government,
Israel
who made a
first
wager
policy?
to try and bribe the government, all of their cards from their bribe
Can we
envelopes
get a
are now
divestment from
discarded.
it? God,
And their bribe
man,
envelopes go
you
back
know what?
empty. The other
We got to tell this guy. We got to tell this guy. We're going to give this guy some feedback. He missed an opportunity. I want to be able to change. I want to be able to bribe the government to change the policy to divestment from Israel. Can he please? We all need to. When my article about this comes out, we all need to tweet at him, and we need to be like, "Yo, we watched your whole video, and we have a helpful suggestion, and we would like to be able to bribe the government to divest from Israel. Please, can you add that to the game?" And the socialists actually might be on board with that. They'd be like, yeah, yes, we can add that to the game, even though we don't like you because you exposed us for trying to murder Trump and Elon Musk in a game. We're going to do that, though.
players who maybe sat out from the wager, they might still have cards in their bribe envelopes, and they can wait to try and bribe the government the next time. The other situation under which a changing government policy happens is when the draw deck is exhausted, once all of the cards have been used and there's no way to replenish the market, so there's not enough cards for a player to draw. That's the end of a round, and also the government changes at the end of a round as well. For more rules about changing government policy, consult the rule book, but this should give you a good start so you can play level 3 and get about bribing those politicians and making sure that the world is safe for business and billionaires. Good luck.
So I kind of get what they're doing. So they're giving us different things we can play in the game, and like the base level is that you just have to understand how the billionaire stuff works. So if you don't want to have all this complicated stuff on, you can just play it at like the base level and I guess enjoy that. But I actually kind of appreciate this. They're saying we're going to teach you how to play this extremely complicated game very slowly by like adding these new things on. But the new things are kind of cool. I kind of I kind of want to buy this game. I'm not gonna lie. I probably, if I don't get their Kickstarter taken down for threatening to murder Trump and Elon Musk, I would probably fund this game and I would probably buy it. But they probably shouldn't be modeling their cards after Trump and Elon Musk because they're literally saying they might cut their heads off. And so that's probably, they should have created fictional billionaires. That would have been a better strategy. But if I don't get their Kickstarter taken down, I might buy this. I'm not even joking. We should play this. We should have a group retreat just so we can learn how to play this game.
All right, billionaires, welcome back. Congratulations on making it this far. You are ready to play level 4 of Billionaires and Guillotines, where we will be introducing roles to the mix. You have already learned how to compete for precious assets like art treasures, golf courses, cryogenic labs, celebrity spouses, and more. You've learned how to sabotage your opponents. You have learned about crises and how crises begin to unfold as the billionaires suck up the wealth of the world, and how this leads to increasing rebels and rebellions, and eventually to a revolution where all the billionaires can lose. You have learned about how to bribe the government. You have learned about panics and how the billionaires can try and collaborate at the 11th hour to forestall the revolution. And now you are ready to learn about the extra roles that a billionaire can play. They are represented by these maroon cards in the deck that you've probably received. They are yellow on this side. This tutorial is going to be relatively short because the rules here are fairly simple, but they add delightful complexity to the game. Now, billionaires obviously don't need jobs. They are already extremely rich. However, it sometimes helps a billionaire to have a job. And if you are playing at level 4, what you will do before you start playing the game is everyone is going to select one of these 9 role cards in order to give their billionaire either a special power or a special winning condition. Now, how you do that is this. The first player is going to shuffle up these role cards, like so, and they are going to take 2 at random and look at them secretly. And then they're going to pick one that they like. Will they be the elite prepper or the disaster speculator? Then they return the other card to, they take one, in this case the elite prepper, they secretly keep it with them, and then they shuffle the deck up and hand it on to the next player,
I guess we could just
who will
print it
then
off, too.
take 3 cards
Could just print it off.
and select one of them. Will they be the space cowboy, the celebrity, or the toady? I'll explain all of these cards in a minute.
I have a brand
They'll
new printer.
take one,
I can print these off on my
again,
brand new
put it
printer.
face down in front of them, shuffle the deck, and hand it on to the next player, and so on until all players have
me
a
to
secret
install the
role.
printer.
So what are those secret roles and what do they do? Well, I will explain them to you one at a time, though it might help you to look through the deck and discover, or look through the instruction manual, excuse me, and see the rules specifically. All of the rules are on the cards in case you get confused. Excuse me, it's getting a bit late here in the tutorial making. Okay, so let me introduce you to all of these cards in turn and just walk you through what each of them does. The first and probably the simplest to understand is the banker. Now note at the top of all of these cards, you will see instructions on how you are supposed to display the card. Some of them you keep secret
Why
until
are
you
you
use
holding
their
it in front
power.
of the camera?
Some of them are laid on
That's
the table
him. That's not
in
it.
front
That's
of
the
you.
video.
I'm just going to come around here.
Yeah, show the
show you.
card.
All right. So the first card is the banker. If you're the banker, you place the card face up in front of you to begin with. Now, the banker is quite special. They basically get to cheat. You can have a hand of 3 cards, but you still can only bid with 2 of those cards. And you also win assets on ties, whereas most players lose when they tie with the market. So, a very powerful card, the banker. Next up, we have the gangster. Now, this remains secret. It's a secret until you use its power. And when you have this card, when you audit an opponent, rather than forcing them to give back an asset to a market of your choice, you steal the asset directly from them if you are the gangster. But you may not use this power to win the game. So if you use it to accumulate your 5th asset that you need to win, that's not allowed. Next up, let's say you don't really like your roll. Let's say you don't get a very good draw at the beginning. If you have this card, you keep it secret, and then next time you get a chance to set government policy, after setting the government policy, you can also give this vulture capitalist role to another player and take their role instead. So that's a good way of getting rid of your role and also giving this, getting a role that you maybe really want, which will become clear in a minute. All right. Here is the insider trader card. You keep this card secret until you use it. On your turn, you can discard this card. It goes back to the deck of roll cards to return an asset to its market and take any asset from any available market as a replacement. You cannot use this to win the game either. So just like the scam card, which we introduced in level 1, this allows you to return an asset to a market and take a new asset instead. Here we have the Space Cowboy. This card is placed face up in front of you so everyone knows it's your goal. And it basically says that if you have the Research Institute, the political appointment, and the Cult of Personality, you immediately win the game. So this is an alternate way to win the game by collecting a different set of assets than the one on your billionaire card. Similarly, if you are the Elite Prepper, then you also place this card in front of you publicly. And if you are able to collect the Private Island, the Mercenary Army, and the Scam Charity, then you will win the game immediately as well. Next up, we have the Disaster Speculator. This is also a card that you place face up in front of you so everyone knows that you're the Disaster Speculator. If 3 of the following crises have been unleashed or activated, so they're there by the guillotine on the board, here, then you will win. If wildfires, floods, droughts, and pandemic, if any 3 of them are in play, then you have won the game. Only 2 more. Next up, we have the Celebrity, one of my favorite cards. This card is kept secret. And if the revolution occurs while you have this card as your role, you will win. You are a celebrity, the people love you, and they spare your life in the event of a revolution. However, if your action caused the revolution, if you flipped over that last crisis card that brought it to 10 or more rebels, that's it. You lose along with everyone else. And finally, we have the Toady. This is a great card if you don't think you're going to win. When an opponent wins the game, if you have cards totaling 6 points in their suit in your bribe envelope, you will also win alongside them. So let's say, for instance, that you think the Property Speculator is going to win. Property Speculator's suit are these blue locks. If you have blue lock cards totaling 6 or more points in your bribe envelope at the end of the game and they win, you will also win alongside them. So these are the roll cards.
I don't think
it introduces a lot of interesting complexity and new strategic and tactical thinking to the game. I wish you well. Billionaires and Guillotines is available from Pluto Books, first for our Kickstarter in the spring of 2025 and should be available in stores later that year. Please like and support and share news about our game, and I hope you have a good time.
I will. I'm going to share news about your game. That's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, listen, I know that was a little bit boring, but like I actually enjoyed being walked through that. Let me see if they're Actually, the guy who invented that term that I didn't believe was real apparently backed this. He tweeted about it. Someone sent it to me. I think that was Jane. So they're at almost $10,000. They haven't moved. They haven't moved since we first started, but they're gonna make a lot of money. I'm gonna tell you this right now. Communists and socialists are gonna eat this game up. I know it's really complicated, but I feel like once you played it a couple times, you could probably figure it out. But like, they are going to love this game. Oh, well, let's watch their preview. Do they just have a preview of this game? Why didn't we watch this? We jumped right into the hour-long video. Why didn't we watch this?
My name is Max Haven, and I'm the designer of Billionaires and Guillotines, a new board game where you will take on the role of 2 to 5 rival plutocrats vying with one another tooth and nail to grab the wealth of the world before your actions trigger revolts and a revolution where you will lose a lot more than your assets. You'll begin by learning how to marry a celebrity spouse, get your own private island, hire a mercenary army, and get your own personal mega yacht. It's the billionaire simulator you always wish you had. I really believe that we can think through and use games as a platform for teaching people about what's wrong with capitalism and why we must create alternatives.
Wow.
Fund this game and get your own copy before anyone else. You'll also be able to get amazing rewards, including packages of books from Pluto Press, who are producing the game, and anti-billionaire merchandise as well.
And yet he didn't mention, did you notice in his preview video, he kind of left out the part about the violent revolution overthrowing the billionaires literally in the game. I mean, it's called Billionaires and Guillotines, and so they're not exactly hiding it, but like there is a literal guillotine card in the game. Like, communists are much more creative than the right. Socialists are the much more creative ones. This is what creates culture, and I wish people on the right understood this, but they don't. So it's just us. It's just us against the left. That's it. We're the only ones who understand. But I thought that that was a really good use of a stream. I know we didn't get to that other content today, guys, but that's all right. We can do it another day. Now, tomorrow we are going to be doing Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. If you have never been to Counter-Revolutionary Book Club with us before, we do Counter-Revolutionary Book Club. I can't believe it's like almost Thursday already. It's Wednesday. Like, that's crazy. So we do Counter-Revolutionary Book Club on Thursdays at 5 p.m. on the show. And how you get access to that is by going over to my main Substack. That is Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. Click on this book club link up at the top and go to Dystopian Documents, Queer and Gender Activists Are Reading. Now, we have already read a couple of these. We've already done Towards the Queerest Insurrection. We've already done Polyamory and Queer Anarchism. We spent 4 episodes doing Against the Gender Nightmare. That was a huge one. Last week, we did the Gender Accelerationist Manifesto. And so coming up, and this is a long-ass document, if I remember correctly. This is a book. This is a book. So what we might do with Queering Anarchism is we might take it a chapter at a time. This is a very influential book. This shows up in a lot of places. It was a book that was written in 2012, addresses myths about anarchism and explores the complexities of queer theory within anarchist practice. As you guys know, when we follow queer Marxists, that's queer anarcho-capitalism. Not capitalism. Oh, God, not capitalism. Oh, strike that. That's queer anarcho-communism. I am the anarcho-capitalist. They are the anarcho-communists. And so this is a book. So this might take us several episodes, is what I'm saying. But we will read it. We will break it down. We will talk about these ideas. We've actually already covered some chapters from this book before, and it is a really interesting book. As a reminder, it was written before gay marriage was legalized, and in this book, you're going to see them talking about how they don't like gay marriage. And so we may just take it a chapter at a time and just see how it goes. Now, if you want to access back episodes of the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club, you can also find those there. We are also doing now these shorts with the help of Mizakan in the Counter-Revolutionary Book Club, where Mizakan reads all this crazy stuff and he highlights the parts we need to know. So now there are other books that we're covering in that too. But this is also a podcast that you can join or subscribe to on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And if you ever want the archived video episode where we do the breakdown, just go into the Substack, because when I post the audio podcast, I also post a video of us actually doing like the breakdown, so you can see the text on the screen and all that stuff. So if you want to read ahead, go ahead, but we will be reading the text together. One thing I learned about running book clubs is people always show up without reading stuff. So I cannot trust you guys to show up and read it on your own. We have to read it together, because that is the lot that we have chosen in life. Anyway, you can get access to that over on my Substack, Carlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. And if you're over there, please sign up as a supporter for $8 a month, $80 a year, because I can't do this stuff unless you guys support the work I'm doing. I'm completely independently funded by you. And download your copy of Mapping the Modern Left while you're there, and that'll be a helpful tool to tell the difference between Democrats and communists, because not everyone knows that. All right, guys. That was a good episode. That was a good episode. I'm going to go make some clips and write an article about how communists are trying to kill Donald Trump and Elon Musk with board games. And I will be back tomorrow for Counter Revolutionary Book Club. I hope you guys all have a great night. Take care, and we'll see you soon. Bye.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.